Evely, you still don't recognize me? I used to beat you up when we were kids. The voice of the white-haired, animal-eared girl came from behind. The lion man, who was curled up on the ground, was taken aback, raised his head again, and looked at the other person seriously. Slightly dark skin, short white hair. This image characteristic. Evely tried hard to recall, comparing herself to people from her childhood who matched these physical characteristics. It seems there was such a beastman girl, but the memory is too vague. I still can't remember who she is. You're also from Quangling City? Evely asked through gritted teeth, enduring the pain. If the two knew each other when they were children, then the other must also be from Quangling City. And Jia thought for a moment and said, I guess so. Upon hearing this answer, Evely's expression immediately turned ferocious, and she roared, You traitor! You actually helped the fairies and caused the deaths of so many people from Quangling City. You traitor to the orcs! Blood flowed from the wound, and the hollow in his chest cracked and creaked as he roared, the sound of bones grinding together. But none of this could stop Evely from cursing the traitor in front of her. Since she came from Quangling City and joined forces with the elf tribe, she killed nearly 10,000 orc soldiers. Only he is still alive. And Jia tapped his ear with his little finger and sat down outside the iron cage. He said, Your brain really doesn't disappoint me. It's good that you didn't remember me. Once Quangling City is taken, you'll know who I am. You madman, you sinner of the orcs. You will die a horrible death. Evely cursed loudly. Back then, when you drove me out of the city and wouldn't allow any village to take me in, when you wanted to watch me freeze and starve to death, and have my body eaten by wild animals, did you ever think about how you were sinners? And Jia said coldly. Evely was taken aback, and her brows furrowed sharply. The next second, his pupils shrank. You're from the Fighting Fang clan. The voice grew louder, shouting, You're that child from the Fighting Fang clan. You're still alive. And Jia gave him a cold look, didn't answer, and turned to walk away. As he reached the door, he said to the guard outside, Keep an eye on him. Give him a couple of stabs now and then. Fierce Lion Clan is tough. Don't let him get away. Yes, the guard replied. Evely felt a chill run through her again. Come out of the church. Fang Hao didn't go back immediately, but instead had the carriage turn a corner. Follow the street to Xiqing District. The carriage traveled for about half an hour before arriving at its destination. 100 Cities Federation, Alchemist Association. The Alchemist Association is divided into two parts: the front yard, the hall, and the ivory tower. The front yard is where alchemical materials are acquired and potions are sold. Whether it's traveling merchants bringing materials or herbalists from nearby areas who cultivate alchemical plants, they all sell their goods to the association here. People from the city also buy medicine here. It is a separate trading platform. The ivory tower behind it is a white spire that is wider at the bottom and narrower at the top, resembling an ivory tusk, hence the name Ivory Tower. It's where alchemists concoct potions, except for alchemists or special personnel. It is not open to the public. After asking the driver to wait aside, Fang Hao led Dimitrika into the association's hall. There were still quite a few people in the front yard. There were nobles dressed in finery, as well as ordinary people carrying medicine baskets and selling herbs. He went straight to the front desk, where a female clerk gave him a nonchalant look, then glanced at the lizard man behind him. He asked, What is it? His attitude was somewhat cold. My name is Fang Hao, and I am the city lord of Li Sis. See if your guild leader is here. I have something to discuss with him. To avoid trouble, Fang Hao introduced himself. As planned, Rebecca will arrange for someone to make an appointment with the president of Alchemist in advance. But the church session ended a bit too quickly today, and he had nothing to do when he got home. So they sent the carriage directly here, so that even if they couldn't see the Alchemist president, they could still purchase some potions here. Upon hearing Fang Hao refer to himself as the city lord, the female shop assistant showed surprise. After looking him up and down, he changed his indifferent attitude and said, Please wait a moment. I'll go ask. After saying that, he ran off to the back and soon returned. Sir, this way please. The chairman invites you to come over, the female shop assistant said respectfully. Fang Hao nodded. Thank you for your trouble. The female shop assistant swayed her hips as she led the way to the backyard. Instead of going into the ivory tower behind, they took him to the third floor of the middle building, to a room. After a light knock on the door, a somewhat aged voice came from inside. Come in. The female shop assistant opened the door, indicating that Fang Hao could come in. Enter the room. The interior scene came into view. A desk with several sheets of parchment covered in research papers scattered on its surface, and several glasswares placed nearby. The four walls are covered with bookshelves, and the bookshelves are filled with neatly stacked books. Mr. Chairman, I hope you won't mind my uninvited visit. Fang Hao smiled. Behind the desk was an old man. She was wearing a dark robe, and her hair was a bit messy. Haha. City Lord Fang Hao, just call me Kenneth. May I ask what brings you here today? Guildmaster Kenneth asked. Fang Hao isn't very famous, but his status as Rebecca's young husband is widely known in the industry. I plan to order a batch of medicines here and establish a long-term partnership, Fang Hao said, sitting down beside him. Kenneth nodded, not feeling too surprised. Ordering the medicine is no big deal. I'll have someone take you to the front yard to take care of it, Kenneth said softly, stroking his beard. I'd like to ask if there's a discount if I order a large quantity. As the two were talking, the door was opened again. A servant brought 2 cups of hot tea to the two of them. Oh, how much is a lot? Kenneth asked, picking up his teacup and blowing on it. Many city lords also came to order the potions. However, alchemical potions remain luxury items, with a single bottle costing tens or even hundreds of warfire coins, which is beyond the reach of ordinary people. Therefore, the purchases made by a city were used to support some family members or nobles in the city. A customer ordering 200 or 300 bottles is considered a major client. The Alchemy Guild primarily relies on the Merchant Alliance for its sales channels. Moreover, what purchasing power could a city like Lysis, a peripheral city, possibly have? Because there are many types of items ordered, it's hard to give an exact number, but Rebecca and I discussed it and decided to purchase 1 million warfire coins worth of potions first. Puff. Fang Hao had barely finished speaking when Kenneth spat out a mouthful of tea. 1 million warfire coins? Is the medicine going to be distributed to the residents of Lysis to be drunk like water? Kenneth coughed twice and said, Are you kidding me? No, what's wrong? Is the president having some kind of problem? Fang Hao said seriously. Fang Hao does indeed need to purchase so many medicines. The medicine for humans is equally effective for the other living beings. However, there is no way to buy human potions from the orcs and trolls within the territory. The territory now plans to establish an internal trade network to circulate the specialties of all races, and also intends to sell potions to orcs, trolls, and transmigrators. It's a surefire way to make money and also enhance the variety and sophistication of your items. Moreover, many orcs within his territory were stuck at the 8th or 9th rank. He planned to use potions to raise their ranks so that they would all become heroes. Cough, cough. I don't have any difficulties, but can Lysis City use so many potions? Kenneth stroked the water stains on his beard. Fang Hao thought for a moment and offered an explanation. President Kenneth, you don't need to worry about the cost. The 1 million is just an initial investment. We will see the results later and decide whether to increase the purchase volume. We will continue to make purchases every year. Nickens still frowned and gave the other person a strange look. Just a reminder, City Lord Fang Hao, the association does not allow credit payments. Oh, money isn't a problem either. As he spoke, he pulled out several warfire cards from his pocket, each with a large sum of money, stacking them up in several piles. Good heavens, Kenneth was completely dumbfounded. Do you only carry this much money with you? Now Kenneth believed it too. Lysis truly did have the financial resources. As a business entity, Kenneth would naturally not refuse a wealthy client seeking cooperation. After all, there are quite a few alchemist organizations within the Merchant Alliance. Haha. Good. Then Lord City Lord, give me the order, and I will immediately arrange for people to prepare it for you first. If there is a shortage of potions, I will also arrange for people to refine them. Kenneth said happily. No rush. How much of a discount can the president give me? You know I still have to explain to Rebecca when I get back. Fang Hao said helplessly. Irving pondered for a moment and said, How about a 20% discount? This is the best price that the major families can get. This method of folding is also derived from transmigrators. Silverwing City's Chinatown is developing rapidly and has become a well-known commercial street in the city. All sorts of strange and unusual words and sales methods also spread throughout the city. Discounts, membership cards, and big sales promotions. Natives had never seen anything like this before, and many were completely taken aback. I checked Merchant Alliance, and the price wasn't even that high. Oh, then, Lord City Lord, what do you think would be a better amount? Kenneth continued to ask. 50% off. Lord of the City is joking. This price is too low. Let's go for 30% off. That's the lowest we can go, Kenneth said after a moment's thought. 50% off. Kenneth did some more calculations and said, I can only offer a 30% discount. If you buy magic or life potions, I can give you an extra 40% discount. You can't get a discount lower than 30% from anyone at the Merchant Alliance. Seeing that Kenneth had said so, Fang Hao knew that he couldn't suppress it any longer. He pretended to be deep in thought and said, It's not impossible, but I need one more condition. Oh, you said something. President Kenneth must have heard about our entry into the upper council in Lisis City. I hope the Alchemy Association can support us at the council meeting. Fang Hao stated his second objective. Kenneth wasn't surprised by this. In fact, some of them had already guessed the purpose of their visit. But now that Fang Hao is a major client of the Alchemy Association, they won't allow him to ruin their relationship. After a moment's thought, he said, Okay, I'll give the instructions later. When can you order the medicine? Fang Hao smiled and said, I'll have someone deliver the order and a partial prepayment within 3 days. Then you can start preparing the goods. Kenneth nodded, indicating that he could. 3 days before the parliamentary session, so there's no fear that Fang Hao might deceive him. All right, in that case, I'll head back now. Fang Hao stood up. Yes, Lord City Lord, please take care. The female clerk outside the door opened the door again, swaying her hips as she saw the two off. After leaving the association buildings, Fang Hao glanced back at the towering ivory tower. Medicine plays a very important role in this world. In addition to restoring life and magic, it can also increase training experience and physical abilities. These are all very practical medicines. He had previously considered training a group of alchemists himself. However, after searching, they only came into contact with the demon alchemist, which was far from enough to form a large-scale operation. The only option now is to order from the association, develop our own alchemist, and then gradually cultivate it. After leaving the front hall, they boarded the carriage and returned to their lodgings. 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Under the escort of several Lionheart knights, the carriage slowly approached the courtyard. Rebecca, wearing a long blue dress, stepped down from the carriage. She looked up and saw Fang Hao leaning out of the building and waving at her. After giving a smile, he quickly went upstairs. The door opened, and Rebecca walked in, lifting her skirt. Through the lifted hem, one can see a pair of exquisite little shoes and black stockings that cover her rounded calves. It seems that black stockings are his most successful product. Women really like these kinds of stockings. Back then, skeleton tailor stockings were not very warm and offered little protection, which I argued with myself about for a long time. Looking back now, I realize I had good judgment. Why are you out all day? Fang Hao asked. Rebecca sat on the bed, looking tired, supporting herself with her arms. Olivia introduced me to several members of parliament. If it weren't for her influence, these people probably wouldn't have even met with me. The talks went fairly well. Fang Hao smiled slightly, sat down next to her, and placed her beautiful legs, encased in black stockings, on his knees. He lifted her skirt and massaged her legs. She's still his wife. After all, he should feel sorry for her. Having her legs massaged by her own man made Rebecca feel both shy and happy. Her face flushed slightly as she said, It's all right. The chat was quite pleasant. There should be some people who will be on our side when the time comes. He paused for a moment, then asked, How are things on your end? Did the Archbishop give you any trouble? It wasn't exactly difficult, but it was definitely more challenging than what we experienced at Doherty. What were they saying? Some asked about your identity. Some said that Lisis City was not qualified. Basically, all the bishops were questioned. Hearing this, Rebecca became nervous again. The church had always been hostile towards her, and the scene must have been even more tense than she had overheard. So what happened in the end? The church also said they would consider it, but did not directly refuse. So what did you promise them? It's not that organ cannon thing again, is it? Of course not. I promised them 5,000 assistant priest robes and 10,000 armor sets. 10,000 pieces? Are you crazy? So many again. No, I promised them 3 years. I'll give them 3,000 sets in the first year. It depends on whether they agree or not. Let's get into upper council first. It seems we've suffered quite a loss. No, once you join the upper council, you'll get back the principal and interest on everything you send out today. It's just an initial investment. As they were talking, Fang Hao unfastened the engraved copper buckle on the stockings, lifted her right leg, and gently pulled it down to remove the black garter stockings. Her smooth, rounded thighs were exposed. What are you doing? Rebecca sat up abruptly, pulled her legs back, and slapped him in annoyance. Dinner's almost ready. What are you doing wearing that? I'm just being kind. We're an old married couple. What's there to be shy about? She pulled her legs back and placed them on her knees. Fang Hao continued. In the afternoon, I went to the Alchemy Association again and met with President Kenneth. Oh, what did he say? Rebecca's attention was successfully diverted. I placed $1 million order with him, and he immediately agreed to support us. You. Rebecca didn't know what to say. Why is it that everything is solved with money? This is different from the strategy she prepared. Don't worry, everything will go smoothly from now on. East of Dream Forest, the countless undead had gathered, at Njia's command, heading towards Quangling City. Quangling City. Inside the City Lord's hall, the lights were still on. At the very top, on the throne of the City Lord, sat an orc from the Fierce Lion clan. The orc was not young, but he had a burly build, with a mane as flowing as a lion's. It still gives people a sense of oppression, like facing a wild beast. Pure Mane Lion. Tempesta, Orange Tier 2 hero. Tempesta, the Lord of Quangling City, is also the leader of the Mad Lion clan and a second-tier Orange hero. He was already very old, but the advancement of Orange slowed down his lifespan. He remains the most powerful lord of Quangling City. Tempesta's gaze swept across the room as he asked in a deep voice, "Why hasn't Evely returned yet? Wasn't she negotiating with the elf tribe? Why has she been gone for so long?" After a brief silence, below, an orc replied, "Lord Tempesta, I have already sent men to check the border. They should be able to send back a message soon." Evely, despite her many flaws, is one of the few among the younger generation of the Fierce Lion clan to have become a hero. Tempesta, as the city lord, entrusted Evely with this safe negotiation. But clearly, things didn't go as smoothly as originally planned. Evely did not return, nor did even a single soldier who delivered the message return to the city. Tempesta's expression was rather grim as she tried to guess where the problem lay. Neither elf tribe nor Tusco City should dare to directly wage war against Quangling City. Why haven't they returned yet? Lord City Lord, you don't need to worry. Quangling City is quite a distance from the border. It's possible that young Master Evely was delayed on the way due to some matter. Someone continued. Useless trash. Tempesta cursed, suppressing his anger, and continued. The elf tribe is unlikely to accept the conditions we proposed this time. Their alliance with Tuscog City has certainly boosted their strength. Quangling City's conditions were clearly harsh. Elf tribe is unlikely to accept, so Quangling City will have to face the combined forces of the elves and Tuscog City. Compared to before, this has increased the pressure considerably. However, Tusco City is still somewhat inferior to Quangling City in terms of strength and military power. Those below stood up and spoke one after another. Even if they join forces, they are no match for Quangling City, so there's nothing to worry about. It's good that Tusco City is involved. Since we can't break into Dream Forest, we can take this opportunity to take Tusco City. I think that once Evely returns, we can immediately gather our forces and attack Tusco City. Then, Tusco and Quangling City can simultaneously squeeze the territory of Elf Tribe and force them to surrender. This is a good idea. The war with Elf Tribe has been going on for decades. It's time to end it. That's certainly possible. The resources in Dream Forest will be enough to make up for our losses. The men can be enslaved, and the women can be sold to human cities to make a lot of money. Everyone offered their opinions, one after another. They clearly believe they have Elf Tribe firmly under their control. Tempesta listened and nodded, feeling that it was indeed a viable option. Since we can't break into the forest inhabited by the fairies, let's first occupy Tuscog and squeeze the territory of Elf Tribe to force them to surrender. Okay, very good. Let's settle it like this. There's no need to discuss the next round of negotiations. In the next few days, prepare to send troops to attack Tusco City. Tempesta said directly. Yes, Chief. Thump, thump, thump. Before the words were finished, the clock outside the room rang loudly. Everyone was stunned, glancing at the door with puzzled expressions. They knew it was the alarm bell ringing, but the alarm bell in Quangling City hadn't rung for years. The sudden sound left everyone somewhat confused and bewildered. Immediately afterwards, guard stumbled in. He shouted, "A large number of undead have appeared on the east side of the city." What? Tempesta stood up abruptly, her expression changing drastically. An unknown number of undead are approaching this way, guards repeated. Quickly, assemble troops and prepare for defense. After saying that, he led his group of people towards the door. I just stepped out the door. Several enormous figures could be seen approaching the city from the sky ahead, accompanied by beams of black light. The water poured down onto the top of city wall, turning the soldiers who had just gathered and climbed up city wall into skeletons. Bone Dragon. As expected, they are undead. How could there be such an undead force here? Bone Dragon began to circle overhead. Black beams of light fell intermittently, clearing away the orc soldiers who rushed out of the buildings. Immediately afterwards, the undead began their siege. They flocked to city wall. The orcs were trying their best to drive away and avoid the Bone Dragon while defending against the undead attacking from below the city. Because the incident happened so suddenly, all kinds of defensive equipment could not be transported out. The only place to defend is in front of you. When a ray of golden sunlight shines upon the earth, the city wall was breached and the city gates were opened. The dead surged into the city gates like waves, crashing against the buildings before spreading through the streets. The city fell, and countless spirits began to enter its walls. They fought fiercely with the last remaining orcs. Meanwhile, on the other side, Boundary, Shantae Yao Fortress. Today is the day the first batch of people are returning home, and Li Rong is on the list. The sky was just beginning to brighten. Li Rong had already appeared outside the residence. Holding his luggage, he stood with dark elf Morse, waiting silently. Not long after, the water mage Mape emerged from one of the buildings with his belongings. "Let's go. I've had a carriage prepared," Mape said with a smile. The Mage Association does not have any requirements regarding the identity of the monks. However, those who could avoid labor, spend their time reading and learning magic, and have the money to buy books and magical artifacts were basically wealthy merchants and nobles. They all have their own protectors. Mape is from a family in Silverwing City and has his own private bodyguards when he goes out. He disobeyed orders and protected only her. Li Rong also has the Lionheart Knights he recruited himself, and purple heroes protecting him. He glanced at her luggage, which didn't contain much, and said, "Don't take the carriage back. I have a teleportation scroll here. Let's go back together." Mape was taken aback and asked curiously, "Did that guy you were chatting with give it to you again?" "Yes, we'll take a carriage back, which will take at least half a month. Anyway, he has money, so I asked for a teleportation scroll." Li Rong took it out of her pocket and waved it. Teleportation scrolls are also rare among magic scrolls. It's expensive and hard to buy. There is a limit to the number of people that can be sent. Unless it's something extremely urgent, there's no power to use the teleportation scroll. It's quite surprising that they used this kind of scroll because they were in a hurry. "Where did you inscribe the target point?" Mape asked. "My city, so it will only take you an hour or two to get back to Silverwing City," Li Rong replied. Mape thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay, I'll tell the guard." Kindness. Mape and Li Rong used teleportation to return, and the guards then followed the returning group back. After exchanging a few words with his private guard, he returned to Li Rong's side. Li Rong didn't delay and immediately opened the scroll. A beam of light enveloped the three of them, and they vanished from their spot in the next second. "Lord of the city, you're back." Suddenly, a question was asked. Li Rong and the others opened their eyes. Then you see several city residents carrying tools, preparing to go out to work. "Yes." Li Rong nodded slightly. Then, more and more residents and guards greeted Li Rong. The latter responded to each of them. After Morse and Mape returned to the city lord's mansion, he sighed and said, "It's still best to be where I am." I took a hot bath and changed into aristocratic clothes. After breakfast, they immediately boarded a carriage and headed to Silverwing City. Quangling City Hall. Lord Tempesta, the pure-maned Lion King, was kneeling in the center of the hall with his hands bound. Behind them, a large group of orcs knelt down. There were city officials, commanders, and old orcs who had been specifically called in. Hundreds of people knelt down, filling the hall. At the very top, there is a white-haired girl wearing leather armor and carrying a brown leather bag. He was sitting on the city lord's throne, eating fruit and swinging his legs. She looks like a delinquent girl who has been neglected by her parents. Behind the girl stood a bull-headed man, clad in gleaming gold, and a fairy clad in bright silver armor on either side. Hearing a soft cough behind her, the white-haired girl threw the fruit in her hand to the ground. He stood up and walked down step by step, saying, "Dream Forest originally intended to resolve this dispute peacefully and send a peace agreement to Quangling City. However, we did not expect that Quangling City still wanted to resolve this matter by force, so we were forced to retaliate." The prisoners below all frowned upon hearing this. "Is that army of undead elf tribes army? How is that possible? Quangling City and Dream Forest have been fighting for so many years. When did they ever manage to mobilize so many undead?" Copper Bull, who followed, was equally surprised. What's the deal with this kind of opening statement that clarifies one's own position and criticizes the other party from a moral high ground? These are not things that Njia could say, let alone Njia. Even any orc wouldn't be able to come up with such a thing. In particular, the phrases peaceful resolution of disputes and forced retaliation are used. It's clearly saying that Fierce Lion clan was greedy and arrogant, and the fairies had no choice but to retaliate. What do you want? An orc asked from below. And Jia walked down step by step and said, Quangling City will be taken over by us. You have two choices. Surrender, and we will arrange work for you afterwards, or die. This is simply a choice. The captured orcs fell silent. After a brief period of quiet, a somewhat timid voice rang out among the prisoners. Surrender really means you won't die? No need. Why would I lie to you? Anjing said. Then I surrender. Anyone who dares to surrender will be considered a traitor to Quangling City, and their entire family will be executed. At this moment, Tempesta roared loudly, startling the orcs behind him, who trembled all over. Tempesta was in a rather dire situation at this time. Its body was covered in wounds, and its fluffy, disheveled fur was stuck together with blood. His body was wrapped in layers of iron chains and thrown aside. During the battle, Njia and the others did not engage in direct combat with him, but instead used a human wave tactic, which wore him down to his current state. When they were pulled out of the pile of bones, they looked exceptionally gruesome. Hearing the roar, Njia looked at him but didn't say anything. Instead, his gaze remained fixed on the orc prisoners behind him, and he continued, This is your last chance. Anyone who wants to surrender, please speak now. The orcs all glanced at Tempesta, who was severely injured and tightly bound, and finally said, I surrender. I surrender too. I'm just a businessman. I surrender too. One by one, they expressed their stances, with the majority choosing to surrender. And Jian nodded and continued. Record all those who are willing to surrender. Those who are unwilling to surrender, if they are not heroes, drag them out and kill them. Yes, the accompanying fairy soldier nodded in agreement. They took those who were willing to surrender and those who were not, and left. Inside the hall, all that remained were Tempesta, the Pure-Mane Lion King, and a few members of the Fierce Lion clan. And Jia stepped down and moved closer to him. Tempesta, do you still remember me? Tempesta glanced at her with hatred. You know me? You haven't forgotten that winter when I was 7, when you ordered me to be driven out of the city, have you? And Jia reminded him. Tempesta narrowed her eyes and carefully examined the girl with slightly dark skin, white hair, and animal ears. Are you the little girl from the Fighting Fang tribe? You have a better memory than Evely does. He doesn't remember me at all. You killed Evely too? No, but he's dying soon. And Jia said calmly. Tempesta took a deep breath and said, You've come back to take revenge on me? What you think? That's how the rules were in Quangling City back then. If the Fighting Fang clan broke the rules, you would be expelled from the city. You can only blame your own Fighting Fang clan members. What does it have to do with Quangling City? Bullshit. So, it's the city's rule to prevent all tribes from taking us in? It's the city's rule to arrange for people to surround and kill us? I know what you're afraid of. Back then, Old Mir had more prestige than you. You're afraid that everyone will support him. And Jia took a deep breath and continued. Tempesta, has no one ever told you that you are actually a villain? For orcs, who are naturally exceptionally strong, their bodies do not age or get sick as easily as humans. After reaching a breakthrough in rank, lifespan will also increase. But when Old Mir died, his body was so thin that he looked like a skeleton covered only by a layer of skin. At this moment, and Jia still remembered, back when Old Mir was, it was very, very light. He held on to his last breath, instructing her to go west or south, and even if she went to a human city, never to return to Quangling City. Old Mir breathed his last the moment and Jia became a hero through merit trial ground. On the side, the Fierce Lion clan members who overheard the conversation also showed expressions of surprise. Mill was once a member of the Fierce Lion clan, a very talented hero. But after Mir left Quangling City with the little girl fighting Fang, no news came back. But now it seems things are not so simple. If what the white-haired girl said is true, Tempesta then resorted to some underhanded tactics. It not only killed Mir, but also left behind hidden dangers, leading to the destruction of Quangling City today. You're talking nonsense. Mir's death has nothing to do with me. Tempesta retorted loudly, noticing the stares around her. It doesn't matter whether you admit it or not. You're going to die anyway. And Jia strolled back. You. Tempesta's expression changed, and a fear of death began to rise in her heart. He then said, I surrender too. Didn't you say that surrendering would save me from death? I surrender. Quangling City is yours now. You are not on the list of those who surrender. Tempesta nearly coughed up blood and roared. You can't kill me. You have someone backing you, don't you? I'm Orange's hero, and your leader will definitely recruit me. If you kill me, you won't be able to explain it to him. You can't kill me. I can guarantee that even if I'm recruited, I won't retaliate against you. We'll pretend nothing ever happened. Orange Hero is powerful enough to command a force. Even prisoners of war are usually recruited rather than killed. Therefore, he believed that putting aside his hatred for Njia, the leader of the other side would definitely recruit him. Njia sneered. Unfortunately, he's attending some meeting. I'm the one in charge here. Njia turned his gaze back to the fierce lion clan and continued. For Oldmir's sake, I'll give you one more chance to surrender. The choice is yours, to live or to die. I hesitated again. Some of the fierce lion clan members, who had just been refusing to surrender, chose to give up. I have no intention of dying alongside Tempesta. Njia nodded. Hiller, Miss Njia. Hiller stepped forward. Kill Tempesta and all those who refuse to surrender. Leave the heroes' bodies behind, and take the ordinary bodies back to the transformation field, Njia said directly. Hiller was about to accept the order. Copper Bull, who was standing nearby, stepped forward and hurriedly said, Njia, should we wait for the Lord to return? There have been quite a few people killed. The fact that so many people were killed among prisoners of war clearly indicates that personal grudges were involved. No need to ask. I'll explain when he gets back. Don't worry. Njia finished speaking and then looked at Hiller. Hiller, what are you waiting for? Kill them all. Yes, men, take them all out. Hiller shouted. Large-scale elf tribe guards rushed in, dragging the group of cursing orcs out. Among them are Orange Hero and Tempesta. For Hiller, and for these fairies. Naturally, we would like to see these people executed. During the years-long war between the two sides, quite a few fairies also died at the hands of the orcs of Quangling City. Now that I can personally execute these people, it can be considered as avenging my fallen clansmen. In fact, Njia had his own plans besides revenge when he killed so many people. Tempesta is Orange Hero. He was initially severely injured by sheer numbers, and it will be a long time before Fang Hao returns. If he gets any chance to retaliate, no one here can stand against him. Moreover, the Fierce Lion clan is very prestigious in the city. Killing more would deter them. If one of us were to raise our arms and call upon the orcs in the city to take up their weapons again, it would be a very dangerous situation. Rather than leaving hidden dangers, it's better to kill those who should be killed, so that even if they want to resist, they won't have the ability to do so. The rest we'll discuss when Fang Hao returns. Aside from seeking revenge, I can't afford to make a bad impression when leading troops on my own. All the prisoners were taken away. The hall fell silent instantly. Copper Bull said, Njia, what's next? You will be stationed at the city lord's mansion, controlling the soldiers in the city, and then you will transfer the troops from Tuskok City here, Njia said. Copper Bull nodded. Okay, should we inform Lord? I'll inform them. Good. The two left the city lord's mansion again and began making arrangements according to plan. Time flies. The final day before the parliamentary vote. On the carriage, Rebecca leaned back in her chair and said softly, The Mage Association, being a governing body, is not a member of the upper council, but its influence remains enormous. So this vote from the Mage Association is very important. The Mage Association was their last stop. During their time in Silverwing City, the two of them also visited many counselors. There are good and bad aspects, and the final outcome is still difficult to predict. Are you familiar with the president here? Fang Hao continued to ask. Not familiar with him. Only met him twice. SOSO. Rebecca replied. It's neither good nor bad. That makes things a bit tricky to discuss. Unless you promise them benefits, who would want to see you join the upper council? Fang Hao nodded and said, It's all right. Li Rong told me that this president is her teacher. We can use that connection to get closer to him. The fact that I was able to meet with the president of the Mage Association was truly thanks to my connection with Li Rong. Otherwise, you won't even have the chance to make an appointment. Rebecca glared at him, beginning to suspect her relationship with Li Rong. By the way, what's this president's name? Jijilia is a fire mage who is very prestigious in the city. Fang Hao frowned, feeling that the name sounded so familiar. The carriage continued its journey. Finally, they stopped in front of the Mage Association, led by an attendant. I met the Jijilia monk in a study filled with all kinds of books. He was in his 50s, wearing a dark red mage's robe with the Mage Association logo on his chest and flame patterns visible on his chest and collar. Her long, fiery red hair had a few silver strands visible, but her eyes remained sharp, giving her an imposing presence. Crimson Flame Demon Rider, Jijilia, Orange Tier 3. It's Orange Hero again. If it's an Archbishop, then it's the orange rank he's guessing. Silverwing City also has 3 orange heroes in charge. That's pretty high class. President Jijilia. Composing herself, she greeted him with a smile. Okay, have a seat. Jijilia put the book she was holding aside. At this moment, a servant brought out pastries and hot tea. Jijilia continued. I heard about your situation from Lirong. You hope the Mage Association will cast their vote for you, right? Yes, President Jijilia. I hope the association will cast its vote for us, Rebecca said. Actually, the association doesn't want the upper council to have another person, Jijilia said bluntly. Rebecca's expression instantly became somewhat unnatural, but he still said, Lysis's entry into the upper council will not do the association any harm, and we will remember the help the association has given us. Jijilia thought for a moment and continued. After joining the upper council, what do you feel you can gain from the Mage Association? Naturally, we will receive a lot. First and foremost, we will be allies of the upper council. We will fully support the proposals submitted by the association, and I will also exercise my rights. Rebecca and Jijilia began to talk, asking and answering questions. Fang Hao sat to the side, not getting involved in any of this. I racked my brain, trying to recall where I had heard of this Jijilia. Was it in a previous mission, or in the channel? The name is in my mind, but I just can't remember it. After a long pause, Jijilia said apologetically, Rebecca, I can't give a definite answer about casting my vote. We'll have to see how things go. Rebecca glanced at Fang Hao with a hint of helplessness. Promises have been made, and financial incentives have been offered. Since Jijilia still hasn't given a clear answer, there's nothing they can do. Everyone has a different perspective, and perhaps the Mage Association really doesn't want to see an upper council member emerge. Fang Hao nodded to Rebecca. Rebecca forced a smile and said, It's all right. Then we won't bother you any longer. Okay, take care, Jijilia replied casually. The two got up and left the Mage Association. After leaving the gate, we boarded the carriage. Rebecca's smile turned to frustration. Another failure. We've done our best. If we really can't get into the upper council, that's fine. We can still do well internally. Fang Hao comforted him. You're all fire type. How come your personalities are so different? She's so hard to approach, Rebecca muttered to herself. Fang Hao smiled awkwardly. How can that be the same? We've been honest with each other, so it's naturally easier to get along. It's not surprising that they wouldn't agree since you've only met them twice. Suddenly, Fang Hao's heart stirred again. Ah, a fire mage. He suddenly remembered hearing the name Jijilia somewhere before. The room next to the study. President Jijilia, your decision is absolutely wise, Grote exclaimed from the side. Exactly. Her joining the upper council will not benefit the entire federation. Yes, I knew the president shared the same thoughts as us. The other members of parliament echoed this sentiment. These people had already arrived before Fang Hao did. The same issue was discussed with Jijilia, but in a completely different direction. He advised Jijilia against agreeing to Rebecca joining the upper council. They were only halfway through their conversation when Fang Hao and his companion arrived. Jijilia was in the study next door, where the two people who received her were. Grote and the others overheard some of the conversation and learned that Jijilia had not agreed to it, even though Rebecca's terms were somewhat tempting to them. Jijilia glanced at the group and said, Whether she can get into the upper council depends mainly on what the 5 giants say. It has little to do with us lower house people. Compared to Rebecca, Grote, and several members of Parliament's families, they were more familiar with Jijilia. The interests among the nobility are deeply intertwined and difficult to unravel. Since we both live in Silverwing City, we're bound to have some overlap. My heart leans towards Grote's side, not Rebecca's. Yes, I actually have some information about that. I heard that Rebecca promised the 5 giants of the upper council benefits in exchange for their support in the council, Grote said. Oh, someone agreed, someone asked. Grote shook his head. It's hard to say. I heard that none of them have explicitly agreed, but they are all quite interested. Really? What could Rebecca possibly have to impress the 5 giants? Money? Resources? What money could Lysis possibly have? It's just a small, outlying town. The group discussed it, and if Jijilia hadn't been there, they could have said even harsher things. After chatting for a while, Grote and the others then stood up and said, President Jijilia, We still need to talk to the other counselors, so we won't disturb you any longer. Jijilia nodded. Okay, go ahead. The group got up and left. After everyone left, Jijilia got up and walked outside. I just got to the door. Then an attendant from the association hurriedly walked in. Upon seeing Jijilia, he said, Guild leader Jijilia, this was sent by Lord Fang Hao. He asked you to confirm that these are your items. As he spoke, a small wooden box was presented to him. Jijilia frowned, feeling somewhat displeased. The other party hasn't given up yet. They're planning to bribe them. Open it, Jijilia said. With a single effort, the servant opened the wooden box. The two looked inside at the same time, but it wasn't the Warfire card they had imagined, nor was it any valuable item. Instead, it was an old-fashioned pendant necklace covered in rust. The thin chain on the pendant had rotted away, leaving only the round metal pendant, sitting alone in the wooden box. What is this? Jijilia frowned even more deeply. A peculiar feeling arose in my heart. Pick up the pendant and gently run your hand over the edge. Sure enough, you'll find a protrusion. I subconsciously reached out and pressed it. Click! The pendant popped open, revealing the inner lining. In the middle of the interlayer, the 4 words Jijilia are engraved. Jijilia's pupils widened suddenly, and she subconsciously tightened her grip on the worn silver pendant. A long-forgotten memory suddenly surfaced in my mind. She remembered it belonged to her father. He had been away for many years and had not returned to see his father. The emotions that had lingered for years suddenly welled up in my heart with a pang of sorrow. Taking a deep breath, he asked, You said Fang Hao delivered it? Yes. Where is he? Jijilia asked. It was delivered by a guard who said that if it's yours, he'll return it to you. If not, he'll take it back, the attendant said. Jijilia remained silent, but still gripped it tightly in her hand. After a long silence, he said, Prepare the car. Let's go to Fang Hao's place. Yes, Chairman. Night fell. Dragon Soaring Swallow Restaurant. The private room on the 3rd floor was already full of people. Everyone toasted and drank, creating a lively atmosphere. Hubert, the organizer, tapped the table lightly to attract everyone's attention. Then, he said loudly, Everyone, we must all stand together on the issue of the 6th Upper Council member. If Rebecca joins the Upper Council, none of us will have a good time. The people below are all representatives of the city's councilors. Among them were people Rebecca had met and talked to, as well as people she had never met. Now Hubert has gathered them together to discuss this matter again. They exchanged glances. Someone spoke up. Hubert, don't worry about that. I won't agree unless that little wench sleeps with me for one night. Rebecca wants to join the upper council? That's a pipe dream. That's right, let alone lower house. I'm afraid even upper council won't approve it. Seeing that everyone's attitude was basically the same, Hubert also smiled. He continued, Then it's settled. No one can cast this vote. Okay, it's settled then. This woman must not be allowed into the upper council. Hall of Justice. The hall was bright. Doherty took a sip of tea and asked softly, Is there something important that the Archbishop is here at this hour? Archbishop Milton sat opposite him. It's still about tomorrow's council meeting. I'm sure Rebecca promised you some items, right? What's the Hall of Justice's attitude? Milton said softly. Doherty glanced at the other person. She promised to provide some dwarven equipment, but what did she promise to teach? Clothing and armor. And the quantity is not small. Milton put down his teacup. These are about right. What does the Archbishop mean? I don't think she should be allowed into the upper council. Parliament Hall. Many members of Parliament entered the room one after another and took their seats. The seats for councillors are divided into 3 sections, with the bottom section reserved for representatives of associations, labor unions, and civilian councillors. The middle area represents 100 cities, and above that are the 5 giants of the upper council. Hey, does your union agree to this? In the lower area, the nearby councillors gathered together. Don't ask me if you agree, the union representative retorted. Rebecca spoke with our union, and we agreed to vote for her to enter the upper council. But the outcome is beyond our control. She wants to get in? I think it's difficult, not to mention whether the upper council will allow her in. The majority of the lower house is united in resisting her. Another member of Parliament stepped forward. I know something about this. Grote has been busy with this these past few days, getting members of the lower house to unite against Rebecca joining the upper council. They have a grudge against each other, so we definitely can't let her succeed. So what's the situation now? Does she have many supporters in lower house? It's hard to say. I heard that Rebecca's young husband is quite powerful, promising many benefits, and quite a few people will support them. Actually, when you think about it, Rebecca is really something else. After all these years, who would have thought she would be nominated for the upper council? Ha, what does this have to do with us? We're just watching a good show. That's true. District of 100 city councilors. How's the situation? Grote asked softly as he walked down from below. Sitting in his chair, Hubert turned around and said, "No problem. No matter how many people Rebecca convinces, as long as we have half the seats, she won't be able to get into the upper council." After saying that, he asked, "Is everything going smoothly on your end too?" It went fairly smoothly. Rebecca's aloof personality meant she didn't have many friends in the city, so after a little persuasion, she didn't have many supporters, Grote said. Hubert nodded, then lowered his voice further. "I heard that the upper council won't agree to this either, so her chances of getting in are slim. That would be best, so that she can never get into the upper council. This is also an opportunity. The city lord plans to make some arrangements so that Nasir City can nominate the upper council next year," Hubert continued. Hubert is a councilor representative for Nasir City. Grote was taken aback, not expecting that Nassau City had also set its sights on the upper council. "Don't worry, I understand. I'll help you then." "All right, you're a good friend. The city lord will definitely not let you help him for nothing." Grote smiled and continued, "It's almost time. I'll go and give those people one last reminder so that nothing goes wrong. Kindness." Time passed slowly. The seats for the councilors were gradually filled with people. It was a chaotic scene, with everyone whispering about Rebecca joining the upper council. Some people support it, while others oppose it. The sound of discussion drowned out the music playing nearby. Thump! At that moment, the bell rang. 3 huge, floor-to-ceiling flags were scattered on the top of the canopy. The music playing nearby suddenly increased in volume, changing from soothing to soaring and uplifting. The entire room fell silent instantly. Amidst applause, the 5 giants of the upper council emerged from the back. They each took their seats. After the applause subsided slightly, Doherty stood up and said, "Everyone is aware of the council's decision this time, so please welcome the Lord of Lysis to come in and make his final statement." As soon as he finished speaking, behind the platform, then a young man dressed in a blue robe stepped forward, walked to the center with a warm smile, and performed a noble salute to those below. Then he spoke directly. Lysis City, upholding the concept of a community with a shared future for mankind and shouldering the responsibility of a councilor of 100 cities, fought alongside the Federation in the Undead War without ever backing down. When it learned that the Undead offensive was fierce and might threaten the Federation and the safety of various cities, Lysis City did its best to contact allies and share the burden of the Federation, thus earning this nomination opportunity. Here I promise that, once Lysis joins the upper council, it will abide by the council's rules, assist the various trade unions and associations, and contribute to the infrastructure development of the towns and villages of each city. Fang Hao stood on top and read the manuscript aloud. The speech was written by someone I found on the channel, and the content was pretty good. The subsequent promises concerned what Lysis's entry into the upper council would bring to everyone. These are just polite words, meant for the general public to hear. Even after joining the upper council, these matters cannot be decided by a single entity. Fang Hao read aloud all 5 articles. Below, all was quiet. Even joining the upper council is a very serious matter, but no one has ever written such a long and formal speech. Moreover, even Doherty's declaration upon assuming the leadership was not as sophisticated as this draft. As soon as Fang Hao finished speaking, a councillor then spoke up. "Lord Fang Hao, there are rumors that you are just a man kept by Rebecca. Can you represent Lysis City?" Fang Hao frowned and replied, "Husbands and wives rely on each other. There's no question of who supports whom. Besides, I can represent Lysis City." Another person stood up and asked, "Lord Fang Hao, is the power in Lysis in your hands or in Rebecca's?" City Lord Fang Hao, after joining the upper council, what is one thing you plan to do? You've been the city lord for less than a year. What makes you think you have the ability to enter the upper council? Rebecca is an elf half-blood, and you are a transmigrators. Can you guarantee that there won't be any problems? Fang Hao answered each question, but his brows were already furrowed. It's clear that some people had already prepared for this, asking tricky and sarcastic questions. Moreover, the people asking questions came one after another. After answering this, the next question immediately followed. Even a dog wouldn't believe it if I said it wasn't prepared. Bang, bang. He answered more than 20 questions in a row. Doherty had no choice but to tap on the table to quiet the room. Looking at Fang Hao, he asked, Lord Fang Hao, is there anything else you'd like to add? Fang Hao shook his head. No more. Okay, everyone, let's start voting. The voting process here is also very simple. There are no high-tech elements. Each member of parliament has one vote. If they agree, they throw their vote into the agree box. If they disagree, they throw it into the other box. Everyone entered the venue one after another and began casting their votes. Fang Hao stood aside and watched. Judging from the number of people, there were more people who were against it. Finally, the voting ended. Staff began checking the vote count. Doherty announced, "All right, I announce the results. Li's city did not meet the required number of votes to enter the upper council and therefore cannot enter the upper council." Wow. A commotion arose below, with some cheering with delight and others looking regretful. Fang Hao glanced down and then up at upper council, a surge of anger rising within him. It didn't even reach the upper council vote before being rejected by the lower house. It seems my qualifications weren't enough to impress the upper council. Otherwise, even if there were opposition, the chaotic situation we see today wouldn't have come to this. They were practically shouting insults on the spot. Doherty then looked to the side and said, "City Lord Fang Hao, it's a pity you didn't pass. Is there anything to add?" Fang Hao smiled and said, "No." "All right, then the meeting is adjourned." As the 5 giants left, the rest of the group got up and walked out together amidst their discussions. "See, I told you they couldn't succeed. What a pity, such a rare opportunity to join the upper council. Not to mention lower house. Even upper council wouldn't allow them." Exactly, Doherty casually mentioned a nomination, and they actually took it seriously. Hubert and Grote walked together outside. Grote said loudly, and without any hesitation, "Ladies and gentlemen, I suddenly remembered something happy today. I have booked a banquet at Dragon Soaring Swallow Restaurant, and would like to invite you all to join me in celebrating." The people who were walking out stopped in their tracks. He turned around with a cheerful smile. "Of course, it's all good news for everyone. Coincidentally, I also remembered something happy. We definitely need to celebrate properly, huh?" He listened to the sarcasm and ridicule of the crowd. Fang Hao walked expressionlessly to the side of the corridor. Rebecca was waiting there, and when she saw Fang Hao, she immediately took his arm. She gently comforted him. "It's okay. It's just a nomination. It doesn't matter whether you get in or not." Fang Hao used to comfort her, but now the roles have reversed. The attitude of everyone just now, and the mockery from Grote and others in the hall now. She overheard it and was afraid of upsetting Fang Hao. Fang Hao glanced outside and said, "They dare to cause such a scene because they have the upper council's tacit approval. They really think I'm begging them." He put his arm around her waist and said, "Let's go. Let's leave Silverwing City today." The two walked quickly outside, ignoring the jeers of the people on the road, and got into the carriage, heading towards their lodgings. Back at my lodgings, Rebecca's expression remained grim. They spent so much time and effort. In the end, it was all a joke. They failed to pass even the first step, the lower house vote, let alone the 5 giants vote. "Should I say goodbye to Olivia before I leave?" Rebecca asked. Regardless of the outcome, her best friend genuinely helped her. Fang Hao shook his head. "Let's talk in the communicating conch shell. Let's go now. I tidied things up a bit." He then pulled Rebecca and got directly into the carriage. Under the escort of several Lionheart Knights, the carriage left Li Sis and headed towards Li Rong. After giving Li Rong a brief explanation, he used teleportation again and returned to Li Sis. When my feet touched the carpet of Li Sis, Fang Hao opened Lord's book and sent a message to Dong Jiayue. "Tonight, besiege the federal Shantai Yao fortress and refuse any form of communication or negotiation with the federal." A few seconds later, Dong Jiayue replied with a single word, "Oh, Shantai Yao fortress, boundary." The sky was pitch black, without a single star in sight. It was as if someone had covered the entire Earth with an opaque dome. Although the war has ended, the human alliance still maintains a long, thin cordon along the border. A large number of soldiers are stationed here to guard against any potential dangers. For humans, vampires are no less dangerous than the undead. I don't know when it will be our turn to withdraw our troops. A small patrol team walked along the road, muttering complaints under their breath. These words are not allowed to be spoken in the army, but once you're out there, and your companions are people from your own city, you're bound to complain. Just wait. We'll probably be the first to leave after all those mages and church members have withdrawn. We're always the first to charge into battle and the last to retreat. We're the ones who get the most tired. The most tiring? When others go back, they get rewards and fiefdoms, while we can only get a few more silver coins at most. Forget it. Someone said they'd give you gold coins if you went back. This money is for those who died in battle. Do you dare to take it? Stop talking nonsense. He paused mid-sentence, then asked curiously, Did you hear anything? The others also listened intently, their expressions instantly changing. One of them, somewhat flustered, pulled out a signal flare and fired it forward. Whoosh! Snap! The signal flame illuminated the distant sky in an orange-red hue, while simultaneously revealing the scene below to the onlookers. A dense mass of undead approaching from the front. The group of people stared wide-eyed, frozen in place. Suddenly, someone turned and ran, shouting, The undead are attacking. The others then realized what was happening and staggered backwards. He shouted loudly, The undead are attacking. The undead are attacking again. In an instant, the torchlight illuminated the camp. Swish, swish. Each signal flame, trailing its tail, illuminates the area ahead. As far as the eye could see, there were countless undead army soldiers. Holding a weapon, I moved quickly through the night. When the signal flare explodes in the sky, it's as if a signal has been sent. The undead, who had just been striding forward, began to run forward like madmen. They directly attacked the human front. Thump, thump, thump. The alarm bell rang, and chaos erupted within the ranks. Immediately afterwards, artillery fire erupted, crashing down on the enemy's ranks. The peace that had just begun was broken again, lasting less than half a month. The battle between the undead and humans has begun once again. Silverwing City. Bang, bang, bang. A sudden, urgent, heavy knocking sounded on the door. Doherty, who had just fallen asleep, suddenly sat up and said in a low voice with some displeasure, What is it? Chief Doherty. Shantae Yao Fortress has sent a message. The vampire forces have crossed the border and launched an attack. The alliance lines have crumbled, and everyone has retreated to Shantae Yao Fortress. A hurried voice came from outside the door. What? Doherty's expression changed instantly. He immediately sat up, threw on a coat, and rushed out. Outside the door, the guards were still holding the communication conch shell used to communicate with Shantae Yao Fortress. Doherty grabbed it, put it to his mouth, and said, What's going on with Shantae Yao Fortress? Soon, the communicating conch shell returned a message. It is the Hall of Justice, garrisoned by Commander Nidham. The vampires launched an attack in the dead of night, and the Allied forces' lines were breached. The Allied forces are currently retreating to Shantae Yao Fortress. Doherty's expression changed drastically. They had just dealt with Otis, and now the vampires were attacking humans again. What did the vampires say? Nidham replied. No response was given. Can Shantae Yao Fortress hold off the vampire forces? Doherty continued to ask. Once we attack the city, it will be difficult to hold it. If we cannot communicate with the vampires, I suggest we withdraw our troops and retreat to the next district to re-establish our defenses. Tap, tap, tap. On the streets late at night, groups of army soldiers appeared, along with carriages heading to the Parliament Hall. The members of Parliament were dragged out of bed. Still half asleep, I got off the carriage and walked somewhat bewildered toward the Parliament Hall. What happened? What serious incident has occurred? I don't know. Let's hurry up and not be late, or we'll mess things up. Yes, hurry up. Soon, the once empty hall was filled with counselors. Some of them still reeked of alcohol. They had been dragged out of the restaurant by the guards. He was dazed and kept nodding. Soon, 5 bigwigs, including Doherty and Milton, came out from behind. There was no opening statement. Doherty stated directly, Shantae Yao Fortress has sent the latest news. The vampire army has broken through the lines and officially launched an attack on the Federation. The Federation army is currently trapped in Shantae Yao Fortress. Wow. The moment these words were spoken, the entire room erupted in chaos. The war has started again. Didn't they sign a treaty? Why would they do this? These damn vampires, they really don't keep their promises. How is this possible? They broke through the Allied forces' defenses so quickly. Given the mobility of the undead, once they breach Shantae Yao Fortress, it will be very difficult for the Allied forces to stop their advance. What should we do? We're doomed. Damn it, what do I do? What do I do? After loudly cursing the vampires, everyone became worried. The vampires breached the defenses, and with the undead's mobility, humans would struggle to keep up with their attacks. In particular, a group of personnel had just been withdrawn from the front lines and were on their way back. There's no village or shop in sight, and we can't get in touch with anyone. The fear that Otis had previously instilled in them rose from the depths of their hearts once again. Compared to ordinary people, these nobles who enjoyed better resources were more afraid of death. Bang, bang, bang. Doherty banged on the table, silencing the entire room. He said loudly, "Time is of the essence. Every minute wasted will make the situation more dangerous. Everyone should think about how to resolve the current situation." Silence fell instantly. At this point, it would be too late to mobilize troops. The upper council couldn't come up with any solutions, let alone the lower house staff. After a brief silence, someone spoke up. "Let's see if we can talk it over. Even if we can't solve it, it'll buy us some time." Yes, there has to be a reason to start a war. The Federation even promised the vampires 30 million in aid, but they don't want it anymore. Doherty replied, "The vampires are refusing to communicate with the Federation, so we can't get in touch with them at all. The besieging forces are all low-level undead, and if we send anyone out, they will be attacked immediately." It seems the vampires are determined to start a war. They don't contact the federal government at all. The entire hall fell silent once again. Fear and helplessness gripped the hearts of everyone in the room. They suddenly realized that they, as nobles and members of parliament, only held some status among humans. On a global scale, they don't even have the right to speak or negotiate. Just as this atmosphere grew increasingly thick and gloomy, someone suddenly said, "Wasn't it Rebecca who contacted the vampires last time?" In an instant, everyone was awakened. Yes, wasn't it Rebecca who coordinated the establishment of the Federation with the vampires? All eyes turned to the location of Lysis. There were only 2 chairs there, but no one was in sight. Doherty immediately asked, "Where's Rebecca? Why isn't she here?" At this moment, a guard from the Hall of Justice spoke up. "Chief, Rebecca left Silverwing City and returned home after the daytime council meeting." So fast, everyone was stunned. The parliamentary session ended at noon, and he left immediately. But then I thought about it again, and it made sense. After being humiliated by everyone in the council, anyone would probably leave as soon as possible. If you can't afford to mess with them, can't you at least avoid them? "Where are the counselors from Lysis? Why aren't they here?" Doherty asked angrily. The attendant continued, "I heard that the counselor also left with them." Everyone was stunned. What does this mean? They even took away the resident members of parliament. Is this an attempt to leave parliament? Or are you saying you want to withdraw from the 100 Cities Federation? If the vampire siege hadn't happened tonight, the members of parliament present would be happy to see Rebecca and the parliament fall out. The bigger the better. They would enjoy the spectacle. But now things are different. Rebecca is the only one who can save their lives. Naturally, Rebecca still needed to step in after the crisis. At that moment, everyone had the same thought in their minds. "Oh no, I really offended Rebecca too much during the day." All the members of parliament criticized each other by asking questions. Now they don't care about anything anymore. Do whatever you want. On the high platform, Doherty's brows were also furrowed, and he glanced at the archbishop beside him. He was starting to regret it. Things had gotten so bad that he was finding it hard to even ask Rebecca for help again. The archbishop nodded slightly, indicating that this was the only option. Doherty shouted, "Use the communicating conch shell to contact the city of Lysis." Some guards retreated, but quickly returned. He whispered, "Chief, there is no response from Lysis." Wow, the scene became even more chaotic, and no one responded. Rebecca has always been tough. Surely she wouldn't really want to take everyone down with her in something like this? Based on the normal route, the Lysis city contingent should be on their way back. I think we should immediately send cavalry to catch up with the contingent and bring Rebecca back, a counselor exclaimed, realizing the situation. Yes, contacting Lysis city is useless. They should be on their way now. Yes. Quickly arrange for the army to bring her back. Doherty nodded and immediately ordered the cavalry team to begin pursuing the convoy from Lysis. But in my heart, I had already felt a little sluggish. They don't have time. The vampires could attack Shantae Yao Fortress at any time, and with the current defensive forces, it is simply impossible to defend against them. Alternatively, retreat, abandon this city, and move on to the next city to rebuild the defenses. They need time. After none of the members of parliament offered any particularly good suggestions, Doherty could only say, "Everyone, go back. Send word to all cities to continue to mobilize troops to support the front lines. The other counselors should also make their own preparations and do their best to cooperate in this war." All right, meeting adjourned. Everyone stood up and walked outside, their minds heavy with worry. The joy and happiness that had prevailed during the daytime meeting were nowhere to be seen. A death more intense than Otis loomed over everyone's heart. All night long, guards crisscrossed the streets, and the counselors' carriages shuttled back and forth between the parliament in their residences. As dawn breaks, the once bustling streets come alive. It also became empty and desolate. It was as if an invisible haze was shrouding the entire city. Whether it's an affluent area or an ordinary residential area, they all sensed the change in atmosphere and began to feel worried. Meanwhile, the latest news from the front lines is that Shantae Yao Fortress has fallen. After losing tens of thousands of troops, they abandoned the city and fled to the rear, where they began to rebuild their defenses. It was also because of the abandonment of the city that humanity had a brief respite. Don't let the undead bite you too hard. Inside the Parliament Hall, Doherty, Milton, and Gigilia sat in the hall. They all looked somewhat downcast. They've held many meetings overnight, but they have no way to deal with vampires who refuse to communicate. And the news coming back from the front lines. This second line of defense only slowed down the enemy's advance. It was clearly impossible to defeat them. Silverwing City also believes in the authenticity of this information. After all, in just half a month, they swept through Otis' great necropolis and took Blackhorn City overnight. This is enough to demonstrate the strength of the vampire army. Any news from Rebecca? Milton asked. Doherty shook his head. Cavalry didn't find the convoy from Lysis. They might have taken some back roads or changed course along the way and gone somewhere else. Now, everyone can only place their hopes on Rebecca, but she can't be found. No one responded to our communication shell, and we couldn't find anyone along the way. It's like they suddenly vanished into thin air. Who could have imagined things would turn out this way? Milton sighed. Every single member of Parliament regretted it. Even if Lysis is not allowed to join, Rebecca should not be made to feel so embarrassed. What's done is done. There's no point in thinking about it now. Let's discuss how to persuade Rebecca to help the council and the vampires make contact when we see her, Doherty said. Rebecca is known among lawmakers for her tough stance. This time, leaving directly indicated anger. If we manage to catch her halfway through, that's fine. We can use some coercion to get her to intervene on behalf of the council. But they couldn't find anyone and waited until they returned to Lysis. Then we can only try to persuade them by using certain conditions. At this moment, Gigilia spoke up. It's hard to say. Why is it hard to say? Milton was taken aback. Gigilia said. When Chief Doherty said that he nominated the upper council and that Rebecca helped the Federation solve its problems, he not only didn't get any benefits, but he was also ridiculed by everyone present. Not to mention Rebecca. I'm afraid no one would believe what you said. This, Doherty and Milton both paused, speechless. This suggests that Rebecca faced very unfair treatment. At the time, they only considered the impact of Lysis's entry into the upper council on them. But they forgot Rebecca's contribution. The upper council, and even the entire parliament, have become ungrateful and treacherous. So, President Gigilia, what do you think we should do? Doherty continued to ask. Gigilia shook her head. I don't know about these things. If all else fails, you can have Rebecca state her terms and see what she wants. The other two remained silent. I fell into deep thought. Let the other party make the request. What if she makes an unreasonable demand? To agree or not to agree? Just then, footsteps were heard from the side, and guards quickly walked in. He said, Chief, the lady has received a message from Rebecca and is asking if you need to contact her. The expressions of the three people in the seats all changed. Doherty suddenly remembered that his wife and Rebecca had a separate communicating conch shell. He couldn't reach her, even though she was Rebecca's best friend. Of course we can get in touch. Communicating conch shell? Bring it here. Guards handed over the communicating conch shell they had brought. Doherty took the document, took a deep breath, and said, Rebecca, this is Doherty. Why didn't the representative from Lysis attend last night's meeting? There was a moment of silence on the other end before a cold voice came through. What is it? The council has important matters that require the participation of the city of Lysis, Doherty continued. The representative from Lysis is unwell, and a new representative is being selected. We'll discuss it later. He really is angry. There are few, if any, people in the entire Federation who dare to speak to Doherty like that. At this point, Doherty didn't know what to say. After thinking for a moment, he continued. Where are you now? Return to Silverwing City immediately for the next meeting. After a brief silence, he replied, I've already returned to Lysis City. I won't be able to attend this year's conference. Goodness, the three bigwigs present were all dumbfounded. When Rebecca gets angry, she doesn't even respect Doherty anymore. You can make whatever decisions you want. Lysis City, will not participate. After that, Doherty said something else, but there was no response from the other end. Grote residence. Thump, thump, thump. The door was being pounded on. Grote, his eyes still blurry with drunkenness, rubbed his still throbbing head. He threw the woman's arm aside and shouted towards the door, "What is it?" The effects of last night's alcohol hadn't worn off when I was suddenly awakened by a knock on the door, and I was filled with anger. At that moment, the butler's voice could be heard from outside the door. "Sir, more than 20 counselors have arrived this morning and are waiting for you to come down to the hall. If you don't get up soon, they might burst in." Grote frowned and rubbed his head. He squeezed the still sleeping woman tightly and continued to ask towards the door, "What are they doing here? Didn't we already entertain them last night?" "No, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be about the banquet." The counselors all seemed to be quite angry when they arrived. The butler said immediately, "Anger? Damn it. What's there to be angry about so early in the morning?" Grote cursed, but still managed to get up with difficulty. He woke the woman beside him and helped her get dressed. Then he opened the door and went outside. "Where are the others?" Grote asked, leaning against the wall. "In hall. Let's go. I'll see who comes looking for trouble with me," Grote said indignantly. With the help of the butler, Grote arrived at hall. Upon entering, I saw that the room was full of people. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be none other than the members of Parliament who had been hosting him for the past 2 days to oppose Rebecca. "This morning, instead of sleeping at home, what are you doing here sitting at my place?" He muttered to himself, but still put on a smile. "Hey everyone, haven't you had enough fun yet? I'm really about to give up. Tonight, it's still Dragon Soaring Swallow Restaurant. Everyone keep going." Grote called out loudly. He appeared exceptionally generous and magnanimous. But inside the hall, there was an unusual indifference. The people opposite him didn't show any smiles. Instead, they all glared at him angrily. Grote's smile also froze a little. What's wrong with everyone? He drank too much last night and slept until now. They know nothing about anything. But from everyone's expressions, one could still sense that something unusual was going on. Did I kill their family members while I was drunk last night? Why do they all look at each other like they're their own enemies? At that moment, a person squeezed in from the back of the crowd. He was also one of the leaders of the Federal Chamber of Commerce. Last night at the Federation Council, Grote was unresponsive and attended the meeting in his place. He leaned closer and whispered, "Last night, the vampires attacked Shantae Yao Fortress. The Federation has held 5 emergency meetings, and they've been searching for Rebecca since last night." Grote frowned even more, still somewhat unable to process what was happening. He asked instinctively, "What do you want with her? Have her contact the vampires. Otherwise, if this fight continues, the entire Federation will be wiped out." "Is the Federation going to disappear?" Grote was instantly jolted awake. "Is the Federation about to fall apart?" Upon hearing this, Grote instantly became more alert. The vampires have attacked the Federation. Damn it. How could they suddenly violate the treaty? Grote had just realized the importance of the problem and hadn't yet figured out how it was related to Rebecca. The waiting lawmakers have begun to speak one after another. "Grote, you're going to get us killed. How could I have listened to someone like you and made such a mistake? Grote, you parasite of the Federation. You are a disgrace to the Marshall family." The insults came like a tidal wave, almost knocking Grote off balance. But then they realized that the problem was quite serious. Which of these counselors isn't a cunning old fox? They're rushing to criticize me and distance themselves from me, clearly trying to prove something. Is it possible that Parliament is blaming itself for not being able to find Rebecca? That shouldn't be the case. So many people voted against it, mainly because the upper council tacitly approved it. Hearing the rebukes around him, Grote was furious, but he couldn't directly retaliate against so many members of Parliament. All I could say was, yesterday's events were a collective decision, so how could I be the only one lying? Besides, the matter isn't settled yet, so it's probably premature for everyone to worry. After all, she comes from a prominent family, so she knows how to speak properly. The matter was discussed and decided by everyone together, so there's no question of me deceiving anyone. Moreover, the matter is still unresolved, and it's too early to determine who is right and who is wrong. After hearing this, everyone, even more furious, Grote, from now on, we will no longer know each other. Furthermore, I will terminate all cooperation with the Marshall family. Shameful. Each person hurled a curse and then started walking away. Grote did not stop or try to persuade him to stay. That's how it is in aristocratic circles. They're always quick to distance themselves from certain things. Once the momentum died down, they started interacting with each other again. To put it bluntly, it's all about profit. After everyone left, grumbling and cursing, Grote then said, "Prepare the car. Let's go to Hubert's place." The entire street was deserted. The carriage moved quickly and soon approached Hubert's mansion. I only glanced at it from afar and saw that there were quite a few people blocking the gate, cursing things like shameless and parasites. Grote was startled and immediately said, "Don't stop. Go ahead. Come back later." The carriage didn't stop for a moment, driving straight past Hubert's door. At this point, Grote finally realized it. It seems the situation is more serious than he realized. Lysis, Rebecca sat behind her desk, and through the conch shell, she was holding onto the table with a bang. His chest heaved violently, a magnificent sight. Rebecca also felt wronged. "You promised to join the upper council, so why are you making it seem like you begged to get in?" He was even criticized by a group of people who pointed their fingers at him and said he was incompetent and delusional. Seeing Rebecca's gloomy expression, Fang Hao immediately went over to her. Helping her calm her anger, he said softly, "Don't be angry. They'll be here soon, begging you to go back. You can name your terms then." Rebecca frowned. Curious, Doherty asked, "What exactly happened last night?" Doherty sounded quite anxious. Fang Hao didn't hide anything from her and said directly, "I had Amanda's army attack Shantae Yao Fortress. Now only you can contact them. If the Federation still wants a peaceful resolution, they will come to you to discuss this matter." Rebecca's eyes widened as she listened. She looked at him in surprise. "I never expected him to do it this way. Wouldn't starting a direct war make things spiral out of control?" Rebecca said. Fang Hao shook his head. "It's all right. The federal parliament is just a bunch of good-for-nothings. Talking to them won't do any good. You might as well beat them up." Rebecca was a little taken aback and didn't notice the other person's increasingly aggressive hands. He continued, "You mean Doherty will come?" "It may not be Doherty, but the council will definitely send someone over to have you come forward to reconcile with the vampires. Be prepared for that." "What should I prepare?" "Prepare for revenge." 8 a.m. A dazzling magic circle appeared in the square of Lysis City. When the magic circle disappeared, several figures emerged from it. The leader, a tall and imposing man, was Doherty, the leader of the Hall of Justice. The other two were a church bishop and a monk from the association. Since it wasn't my first time in Lysis, I was quite familiar with the city. After identifying himself to the guards who surrounded him, he hurried toward the city lord's mansion. In the council chamber, Doherty finally met Rebecca, who was wearing light makeup and a long blue dress. There were no excessive formalities. Rebecca's expression was indifferent as she asked, "Chief Doherty, what important matter brings you to my city of Lysis?" Doherty sat down in a seat nearby. He also stated directly, "Rebecca, the vampires launched an attack on the Federation last night and have already occupied Shantae Yao Fortress. The Federation is now facing an unprecedented danger." Rebecca appropriately expressed her surprise. Then he asked, "These things don't seem to have much to do with me or the city of Lysis, do they? The Federation doesn't even know why the war suddenly started, and the vampires refuse to communicate with us," Doherty said. "So what? Therefore, I hope you can try to make contact with the vampires and end this pointless war for the Federation." It's clear from his words that Doherty has no confidence in this war. They only wanted to find out the reason why the vampires suddenly started the war as soon as possible, so as to end the war. Rebecca gave a slightly mocking look and said, "Chief Doherty, let's not even talk about whether I have the ability to persuade vampires. Even if I did, I'm just an elven half-blood and a woman. The foundation of Lysis City is weak. What right do I have to stand up? The Hall of Justice, the Church, and the 3 city lords. Which one of them doesn't have more prestige and qualifications than me?" These are the voices that questioned her in Parliament yesterday. The entire parliamentary session turned into a denunciation rally. They spoke ill of Fang Hao and Rebecca to the point of wanting to expel them from the human race. "After you finished cursing, you all felt satisfied, and now you want me to do things for you. Where can you find such a good thing?" Doherty's expression also looked somewhat unnatural. In the past, no member of Parliament would have dared to make a sarcastic remark about the Parliament in front of him. But now, facing Rebecca, he really had nothing to say. After a moment of silence, he continued, "It's normal for some people in the council to distrust you. Don't let these things get to you. I'm not in a bad mood. I don't have the ability to persuade vampires. Chief Doherty, you should ask the other councillors," Rebecca said directly. Seeing Rebecca's attitude, the 3 people who came over also became serious. One of the accompanying bishops said coldly, "Rebecca, the Federation is in danger. Now is not the time for you to throw a tantrum. If you have such a temper, go take it out on vampires or undead. What kind of person are you, always chasing after a woman like me to bully me?" Rebecca said coldly, completely unmoved. You. The bishop was about to continue speaking when Doherty stopped him. Doherty continued, Rebecca, this time you won't be wasting your time. If you can persuade the vampires, not only will Lysis City be included in the upper council, but the Federation will also fund the development of Lysis City. If it's the same thing, do you think I'd be fooled twice? This time, the council can pass it directly. I can guarantee that you will be able to enter the upper council without any problems, Doherty continued. This was the first time Doherty had made such a humble promise in front of lower house councilors. Moreover, they were afraid that the other party would continue to pester them. Rebecca paused for a moment, but then said, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Doherty's eyes narrowed instantly. His eyes gleamed with a dangerous light as he stared at Rebecca. Meanwhile, Dimitrika, who was standing beside Rebecca, took a step forward and placed one hand on the hilt of her sword. Tell me your conditions, Doherty conceded again. Rebecca stated, the power to appoint 50 counselors, which I will select, the permanent self-governance of Lysis, a $20 million construction grant, the right to station the army, the right to pass through the army within the territory, and the right to deploy troops in emergency situations. What? Are you crazy? All three were shocked. These conditions are not harsh, but rather copied entirely according to the rights of the Hall of Justice and the Church. The right to self-determination, the right to exercise military power, and the right to deploy troops. This puts them above the upper council, the other three city councilors, and on par with the Hall of Justice and the Church. What grand ambitions. Rebecca, you need to be clear about what you're saying. These are not words to be spoken carelessly. The church bishop solemnly reminded her. Rebecca looked at him and said, I know exactly what I'm saying. These are my conditions, and you can refuse. Still tough. This woman is insane. If you make her angry, she'll say or do anything. Moreover, especially at such a crucial moment, the more assertive Rebecca was, the more the three of them believed she was willing to perish with them. Rebecca, with the strength of Lysis, what use are these rights to you? With so many troops, how can you maintain your position? Another mage in the party asked softly. These have little to do with the Mage Association, but they represent the Parliament. We still need to express our stance. No need for the three of you to worry about this. It's my own business. You, the bishop was so angry he could hardly speak. How did I end up provoking this madman? Doherty never expected that the woman who always gossiped with his wife could be so reckless when she got angry. Taking a deep breath, she said, Rebecca, these conditions are difficult for me to decide on my own. Going back and forth like this will only waste time. Perhaps, Chief Doherty, you're not prepared at all. Are you trying to fool me again? There's nothing to talk about. If the vampires attack, my city of Lysis will send troops to fight. If we really can't hold them off, it doesn't matter if we all die together. Rebecca interrupted directly. You, Doherty frowned. He exchanged glances with the two people next to him, slammed his hand on the chair, and suddenly stood up. It's just this one action. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Splash. Dimitrika immediately stood in front of Rebecca to protect her. On the first floor, a large number of golden-armored guards rushed out, while behind the handrail on the second floor, rows of uniquely shaped fire guns emerged, their muzzles protruding from the railing and pointing towards the rear. The three narrowed their eyes. Rebecca wants to rebel. If the three of them made the slightest move, Rebecca would absolutely dare to order them killed. Even if Doherty is the orange hero, capable of taking on 100 enemies, can he take on 1,000 or 10,000? This is Lysis after all. We can overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Chief Doherty, your legs are numb from sitting. You can move around a bit, but don't move too much. Things here are more fragile than in Silverwing City. Dimitrika stood in front of Rebecca, speaking in broken common tongue. Doherty narrowed his eyes and looked again at Rebecca, who also seemed somewhat nervous. He said, Rebecca, can't you lower your demands any further? I don't feel the requirements are too high. Okay, I need to go back and discuss it in Parliament. I'll give you an answer as soon as possible, Doherty said. All right, then we won't invite the chief to a banquet. Doherty glanced at him with displeasure, then looked at the person next to him. The latter took out a scroll, opened it, and the light of a magic circle enveloped the three of them. They disappeared from the spot. Rebecca stood up and said, the entire city is on high alert for the next few days. Anyone who enters the city using teleportation methods and whose identity cannot be verified should be killed immediately without hesitation. Yes, the soldiers answered in unison. During his meeting with Doherty and Rebecca, in front of a room in the corridor, thump thump, a deep knock sounded on the door. There was no response from inside, but the door opened by itself. Inside the room, the vampire Lorena lay lazily on a soft couch, holding 2 pieces of paper in her hand, with pastries beside her. She ate them while intently reading the contents of the papers. Someone came in, but he didn't even look up. Fang Hao looked at her. Lorena was wearing a silk nightgown, lying on her side, outlining a perfect and alluring curve. She wasn't wearing stockings under her skirt, revealing her smooth, fair legs. Compared to her previous aloofness, she is now more stunningly beautiful. Fang Hao walked over and asked softly, "You're reading this novel too? How did you get it?" This novel is only available on Transmigrators serialized in the channel. Lorena, who rarely interacts with outsiders, shouldn't have found out. "Didn't you say you'd save that room for me? I went back to check on it the other day and found these novels, so I borrowed them to read," Lorena said, maintaining her original posture. This is going back to the main city. That's good too. It's a good thing that they're willing to go back and visit. See, I didn't lie to you, did I? I saved them all for you," Fang Hao said with a smile. Lorena didn't answer. She just stared intently at the contents of the paper. Fang Hao moved closer and sat down on the edge of the soft couch. Seeing that the other party had not changed, after hesitating for a moment, she placed a hand on her slender waist, looked down at the paper, and asked, "Which chapter are you on?" "The smooth silk felt in my palm. It stirs the heart involuntarily." Lorena glanced at him sideways, letting the man's little actions go unchecked. "He saw you peeping at the first madam while she was bathing." You read it so quickly." Fang Hao was somewhat surprised. "If I only received the novel in the last 2 days. This speed is a bit frightening. It seems they're watching day and night." "That's right. You can also watch Black Sky Vampire, and you don't need to worry about getting enough rest at night. Let me tell you, the first madam discovered he was spying outside a long time ago, and it was on purpose. Roll." He paused, then asked, "Can you understand the word system here?" He moved closer, pressing himself against her. Lorena said, "An oracle? What's so hard to understand? God gives instructions, you complete them, and you get the corresponding reward." Forehead. "No way, but that explanation seems to make sense too." At the time, he spent a long time explaining to Air and Jia before they understood some of it. It would have been easier to explain if we had followed Lorena's method from the beginning. "I must say, Lorena is actually quite clever. You're really smart," Fang Hao complimented. Seeing that the other person didn't speak, Fang Hao's hand around the other person's waist became a little restless, touching and kneading it, feeling its smooth and firm texture. Then it quietly moved downwards. "Don't go looking for a beating." The cold voice rang out again. The hand that had just touched the edge of the protrusion paused for a moment. Then it went back to her waist and continued to hug her. "When are you going to finish reading? I bought you a gift. Do you want to take a look? We can read the novel later tonight." Fang Hao continued. Only when he heard about the gift did Lorena look up at him. She said, "Didn't I tell you not to buy me anything? Going out to bring back some gifts for someone you like is nothing to worry about." Lorena glared at him again, but still slapped his hand away and sat up. He said, "What did you buy? Let me see. I'll take it to Rebecca later." Fang Hao was speechless for a moment. "Does she need you to give her anything? She has everything you have. Besides, she helped me choose these, so what's the point of sending them back?" While thinking to himself, Fang Hao continued to take out the items one by one. A hollowed-out, gold-inlaid wooden box contains a cosmetics set from Xianming Tower. This is a new product, specially provided to the nobility. "This is Xianming Tower's newest set. It'll definitely suit you," Fang Hao said. "Gently open it, and the ingenious little mechanism activates, lifting out all the cosmetics inside. Presented before you. Sold to wealthy ladies, they look quite appealing. It is often decorated with gold and silver, making it very beautiful." Lorena's eyes lit up, clearly showing some interest, but she quickly regained her composure and softly murmured in. The second item was a purple gemstone necklace. The gemstone was quite large and also rather expensive. Lorena likes black purple, and that's what I chose when I bought her the purple one. The third item is newly released stockings. In addition to regular stockings, there are also various embroidered garter stockings, mid-calf stockings, and knee-high stockings. They are all very well made, and the workmanship is gorgeous, with many embroidered patterns in gold thread. 2 of the items were made in-house, while only the gemstone necklace was purchased. Lorena still liked it quite a bit, and instead of mentioning it to Rebecca, she held it and looked at it carefully. Lonely Night's Beauty. Lorena and Tobias increases your loyalty by 5 points. Current loyalty 97. It rose by 5 points. For ordinary heroes, their power increases rapidly at the beginning, but the increase slows down as time goes on. Lorana initially increased by 1 or 2 points, but now, with the addition of cosmetics and stockings, it's increased by 5 points. The growth rate was large later on. This is probably related to each person's mindset. Lorana is gradually accepting herself and her territory, which is why her growth is faster. Of course, this is a good thing. Let me put it on for you and see how it looks. Fang Hao picked up the necklace. She saw the man pick it up and walk behind her. Lorana did not refuse, and lifted her long hair to reveal her flawless white neck. The golden chain was wrapped around her slender white neck. A purple gemstone hangs from her chest. Fang Hao returned to her side and looked at her closely. You're so beautiful. Are you a goddess? Even though she tried to keep a straight face, Lorana was still amused by this remark, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a crescent moon shape. This is an angel, not a vampire. Lorana stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at herself carefully. I reached out and touched it. It really did suit me well. I really like it. Thank you. Fang Hao, now emboldened, continued. Want to try some stockings? They're all new styles from Taylor. Let's try again next time, when we have the chance. Why don't you try it now? Let me see if it suits you. Fang Hao pulled her to sit down beside him, lifted her legs, and placed them on his thighs. Lorana was startled by the sudden movement, but ultimately did not resist. Fang Hao didn't dare to be too bold. He was terrified that he would get beaten up again. Raise the hem of the skirt to calf level. Take out a stocking. Her delicate, jade-like feet were slightly arched, and Fang Hao slipped them inside her toes. Lorana lifted her legs slightly, and the man twirled the stockings, gently covering her fair, straight face, all the way down to her rounded, shapely thigh. You really do like legs. That's because I like your legs. Taking out another stocking, Lorana cooperated by placing her other leg on it. Fang Hao repeated the same action as before, only this time at a slower pace. The skin felt smooth and soft to the touch, while the two of them remained silent. When, suddenly, the door was pushed open, Rebecca gripped the armrest, staring in astonishment at the scene inside the room. Before the two could react, the door slammed shut again. Immediately afterwards, Rebecca's voice came from outside the door. Fang Hao, come out here for a moment. I need to discuss the Silverwing City matter with you. The two of them were also startled. Lorana, in particular, jumped up as if she had been caught cheating. She almost kicked the man in front of her away again. Okay, I'll go out now, Fang Hao replied. Then he stood up and, while Lorana was at a loss, kissed her on the lips. He left the room directly. Outside the door, Rebecca was waiting with a somewhat gloomy expression. Seeing this, Fang Hao was taken aback. Are you jealous? Rebecca glared at him and walked toward the study. He said, Doherty did not agree to my conditions, saying he would go back and discuss it with others before giving us an answer. Fang Hao, standing beside him, nodded and said they had no choice but to agree. The study door opened. The two went straight inside. Rebecca continued. Actually, I'm worried that they're only agreeing to our demands temporarily, and once the difficulties are over, they'll use various excuses to weaken our rights. In the recent negotiations, Rebecca has secured rights on par with those of the Hall of Justice and the Church. The vampires are attacking now, forcing the Council to compromise. But what happens after the war ends? Using the methods of the Hall of Justice and Parliament, they will inevitably try to weaken the decentralized rights. Rebecca harbored deep distrust of Parliament. What do the Hall of Justice and the Church rely on to maintain their rights? Fang Hao asked. The Hall of Justice is the army, and the Church is the base of believers. Then let's expand our army, maintaining a number that they won't dare to use underhanded tactics. Fang Hao replied. He didn't mention that his own side also needed faith. However, faith takes time, while army and equipment take longer. It can also clearly deter the other party. Where would I get so many soldiers? Even if I did, I couldn't afford to support them, Rebecca said. Fang Hao patted his chest repeatedly. You have a man. What are you afraid of? I'll get him transferred to you. If anyone dares to bully my wife, I'll dig up their ancestral graves. Rebecca rolled her eyes at him. What? Are you afraid I'll get angry if I see you putting socks on someone else just now? No. It's from the bottom of my heart. Silverwing City. Hall of Justice inside the hall. Doherty hurried back and saw Milton and Gigilia waiting in the hall. From the time they left Doherty until their return, neither of them has left this place. We're always waiting for him to come back. How's it going at the front? Doherty asked first. Milton said, the vampire army has begun advancing towards the new front and is expected to reach the Allied forces' new defensive line before nightfall. After he finished speaking, Milton asked, "Have you seen Rebecca?" Doherty nodded. "I saw him. I sat down to the side, and a servant brought me tea." "Then why didn't you bring her back?" "The war can't be delayed," Milton said anxiously. Doherty downed his tea in one gulp and said, "Bring them back? Hundreds of men armed with weapons and fire guns on the second floor. How are we going to bring them back?" "What? She dares to lay a hand on you?" The other two both looked incredulous. Doherty is a highly respected leader within the Federation. To treat the leader of Hall of Justice in this way is tantamount to breaking with the human Federation. Why wouldn't you believe it? They saw it too. If we had tried to get close or make any move, the scene would have become even more chaotic. At this time, a battle broke out with the city of Lysis. Let's not talk about who won or lost, but it will definitely make the situation more difficult to handle. The other two people accompanying him nodded slightly, confirming Doherty's statement. "This Rebecca is going to withdraw from the Federation." "How arrogant of her," Milton said coldly. Gigilia didn't say anything. She did admire Rebecca somewhat. This was the first time I'd ever seen a woman treat Doherty so forcefully, leaving him helpless. "It's not exactly a withdrawal. She set her own conditions. If we agree, she'll contact the vampires," Doherty continued. These words brought a sigh of relief to the two of them. There is still room for improvement. Things haven't reached the worst point yet. Whatever her request, just fulfill it. Don't rush to agree. Listen first. Doherty interrupted, then continued. Becoming a member of the Upper Council, the power to appoint 50 members, the right to station troops in the army, the right to transit troops within the army's territory, and the right to mobilize troops in emergencies. After hearing this request, the other two fell silent. The meaning behind these conditions is actually quite clear. "I want to be on equal footing with you." Wow, what ambition. What a strong woman. Is she crazy? Milton finally managed to utter this after a long pause. "Perhaps. Let's weigh the options now and decide whether to agree or not. We can't afford to waste any more time. If the Federation is gone, how can Lysis City be preserved? I'm afraid she's already prepared to retreat directly to Fang Hao City with her people, abandoning the city altogether and leaving with everyone," Gigilia said. "Transmigrators even have their own cities." From the promise given to Hall of Justice organ cannon, "Give the church 10,000 armor sets." It's clear that Fang Hao's strength has grown, and perhaps the other side really has this plan in mind. The three of them suddenly fell silent. Doherty and Milton were filled with regret. At the time, Fang Hao offered Hall of Justice equipment worth $50 million, but they refused it. The church refused the $10 million equipment they offered. Now, the council is offering something to Rebecca so she can help them. If I had agreed earlier, things wouldn't have become so passive and complicated. Archbishop, President Gigilia, time is of the essence. We need to finalize things as soon as possible, and we also need to convene an upper council meeting, Doherty urged. The archbishop slammed his scepter and said, "What else can we do? We have to agree, but we should try to reduce their demands. 50 places are too many, and they should also cancel the right to station troops and the right to unblock the army. I don't think it's necessary to take these things too seriously. If we really give Lysis City military power, does she have that many troops to mobilize? It's just that Rebecca was angry and mentioned it casually. It doesn't matter if we agree to her. I think 50 slots are too many, and the funding of 20 million should be reduced. Just agree to the rest." Gigilia expressed her opinion. This caused Doherty and Milton to pause and reflect. That's true. As for the matter of military power, Lysis City doesn't have the manpower. Promising her is just an empty promise. You don't even have enough men to defend the city. So where else can you transfer troops? Instead, one could request a reduction in the number of seats and funding for members of parliament. "Archbishop, what do you think?" Doherty asked. Milton nodded. "President Gigilia makes a good point. We can give it a try." "Okay, let's convene an upper council meeting immediately and finalize the decision as soon as possible. We can't delay any longer." Good. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Horse-drawn carriages sped along the empty streets, heading to Parliament Hall. The second night was fast approaching. The legislators and dignitaries are also worried about the situation on the front lines, and if things get really bad, they'd like to find a way to escape. Many people do not want to perish along with the Federation. Today's preparations for the Parliament Hall were somewhat rushed. The red carpet hadn't been changed, and even the flags hadn't been hung up. There was no melodious music playing. The councillors came in groups, and their usual relaxed demeanor was absent. When, as the bells rang, The five giants made their grand entrance. Doherty didn't waste any words and said, "This time, the council will hold a new vote on the matter of Lisis City joining the upper council." Before anyone below could react, he said to someone standing to the side, "Why don't you come up and say a few words?" A thin, middle-aged man with a goatee emerged from the shadows of the high platform. Wearing a sharp, dark suit, she slowly walked to the center. Palmer, a representative counselor of Lisis. Even though he's sick, he looks like he's standing straighter than anyone else. Palmer walked to the center with a blank expression and bowed to the upper council and lower house representatives respectively. There was no prepared speech. He simply said, "Lisis City will fulfill its responsibilities. Thank you." After saying this, he bowed again, turned around and left. Holy crap, what kind of attitude is this? It wasn't until Palmer turned and walked away that the lower house members realized what had happened. The seats below erupted in an instant. Everyone started discussing it. What does this mean? A renomination? Isn't it true that you can't be nominated to the upper council again within 3 years? What exactly did Rebecca do to make Doherty and the others compromise? Definitely, Rebecca used the upper council as leverage. After all, the vampires still need her help. Found Rebecca? Thank goodness. Rebecca is too arrogant. Even during the second review, when the representative was present, she didn't show up. Indeed, Rebecca is really going too far. She didn't even show up for the upper council thing. Women are just women. They act impulsively. The members of parliament present, while not necessarily the most elite among humankind, had a very clear understanding of the rules of the entire parliament. In just one day, he was nominated for the upper council for the second time. Even without any news coming down, everyone was aware of the problem. The five giants of the upper council tacitly approved Lysis's entry into the upper council. Otherwise, there would be no need for a second vote at all. The councilors of lower house were discussing in hushed tones. Although I can understand the intricacies of the situation, Rebecca herself was not present. The representative's speech, consisting of fewer than 20 words, was still somewhat unacceptable to some. You should at least be there and say a few words. Faced with the discussion below, the upper council members were much calmer. He thought to himself, "You're already going too far without even seeing the person?" This morning, Rebecca almost fought Doherty to the death. So this is already quite a show of respect, as she even sent a member of parliament. Doherty tapped the table lightly to signal everyone to be quiet. "All right, let's start voting now." The lawmakers exchanged glances. They're not stupid. They know how to bet. All the members of parliament lined up and cast their votes at the ballot box. The voting ended quickly. Doherty glanced at it briefly and announced, "All right, now let's announce the results. 274 votes in favor, 15 abstentions. Lower house passes." Setting the results aside, Doherty continued, "Is there any objection from the upper council?" There was no vote. Instead, an inquiry was conducted directly. None of the people above answered. Doherty said directly, "All right, I now announce that Lisis City has passed the council election and officially entered the upper council. From this day forward, it will have the rights of the upper council. New seats will be made, but for now, please sit in your previous seats." Standing not far away, the Councillor Palmer calmly nodded. His face showed no surprise, joy, or any other expression. He simply stood there calmly. "All right, the council is adjourned. We'll keep you informed of any news from the front lines," Doherty announced loudly. The councillors stood up and walked out one after another. After leaving the Parliament Hall, no one lingered. They quickly boarded their carriages and hurried back. Lisis City has entered the upper council. If the Federation had not been destroyed by the vampires, the entire Federation's Gudju, a term referring to the overall structure or pattern, would have changed. The five giants have become the six giants, and judging from the attitude of Lisis City, it is very likely that he will rise above the three upper council lords. This is not good news. We need to inform the forces behind us as soon as possible. The councillors scattered in a panic. One carriage after another sped away, heading back home. Parliament Hall. Doherty looked at the tall, thin Palmer beside him. He said, "Inform Rebecca about what's happening here. The longer we delay, the worse things will get up front." Before the vote, Doherty traveled back and forth to Lisis several more times. The plan is to have Rebecca ease the conditions. But this time, Rebecca's toughness surprised everyone. She refused to back down in the slightest. With the fighting at the front lines pressing, Doherty had no other choice but to compromise. They convened a council directly, bringing the city of Lisis into the upper council. Neither Fang Hao nor Rebecca, the rulers of Lisis, were present. This is also for security reasons, in case anyone goes there and is immediately placed under house arrest by Silverwing City. I have already informed Mrs. Rebecca, Palmer replied calmly. Okay, I'll head over there now. An hour later, Lysis, inside the hall, Doherty sat to one side, watching Rebecca with a blank expression. Ignoring the tea and refreshments that were served, he said, Rebecca, Lysis City has entered the upper council. We will fulfill the rest of the agreements one by one. Now we can contact the vampires, right? Don't act rashly. Rebecca nodded and said, Okay. He waved, and someone brought him a communicating conch shell. There was a label on the conch shell that read vampire. I'm not sure if we can get in touch with the vampires, and even if we do, whether we can solve the problem depends on your own negotiations, Rebecca emphasized again. It suggests that you are not confident and are making unpleasant points clear up front. Yes, we know all that. Without saying anything more, Rebecca picked up the communicating conch shell and said, I am Rebecca from Lysis City. Contact the vampires if you need anything. I tried communicating via shell, but received no response and fell silent. Both Doherty and the accompanying members of Parliament. They waited anxiously, and as time went by, more and more sweat poured down their foreheads. He appeared very nervous. On the contrary, Rebecca and the officials of Lysis were much more relaxed. Some were drinking tea, looking as if they wouldn't mind dying with the Federation by their side. After about half an hour of silence, the communicating conch shell suddenly responded. Rebecca picked it up, held it to her ear, and immediately heard a hoarse but unmistakably woman's voice. What's up? Rebecca glanced at Doherty, who said, Ask her why she went to war with the Federation. Rebecca nodded and said to the communicating conch shell, Why did the vampires suddenly go to war with the Federation? There was another brief silence on the other end. Then he replied, You should ask your Federation about these matters. They violated the treaty privately, attacked our troops, and caused serious damage. Everyone present was stunned. The other side claims that the Human Federation attacked the vampires first, which is impossible. The members of Parliament behind Doherty looked angry. Vampires? What does this mean? They're blaming us. Damn these despicable bastards. So many people died in the Federation, and they actually say that we attacked first. Is it possible that the Federal Army mistook the other side's army for fleeing undead, causing a misunderstanding? The war between vampires and the undead resulted in a large number of undead attacking the borders of the Federation. It's not impossible that he admitted he was wrong. Moreover, the coalition forces were not so easy to manage. Troops were deployed from various cities, and it wasn't uncommon for some rogue soldiers to take the opportunity to steal chickens and other petty crimes. If these are the real reasons for today's losses, then it's truly a terrible waste. Moreover, the vampires currently hold the advantage, and whatever the other side says goes. Even if the federal government denies it, it won't make a difference. The goal was to force the vampires to stop their attack and retreat to the border. It's not about finding out who's right and who's wrong. Doherty gestured to stop the discussion among the others and said to Rebecca, Just say that Otis remnants often attack the border and that we made a mistake. Rebecca nodded and repeated it. The other party replied quickly, You're planning to go over with just such a simple sentence? Let her name her terms. Rebecca relayed this. The other party replied, The compensation is 50 million, enough to cover the population of 2 million. Everyone frowned, somewhat surprised by the price the other party was asking for. They had considered increasing the compensation, but for a population of 2 million, that seemed a bit too much. A city has only tens of thousands of people, and a village has even fewer, only a few hundred. 2 million? That number is a bit too outrageous. Even though the Federation was eager to end the war, it could not accept this number. Even Rebecca seemed somewhat surprised. We can't agree to that. Paying some money is one thing, but sending 2 million people out will create a population vacancy in the entire Federation. Giving people more people is like cutting flesh with a dull knife, gradually weakening the Federation's power. Doherty nodded and said, The Federation protects humanity and the residents of the 100 cities. We will never compromise on the issue of population. Rebecca continued to relay the information. The vampires are still performing quite strongly. We need money and manpower. The federal government, though at a disadvantage, remained adamant about not providing population. Paying reparations would be relatively easy for the federal government to negotiate, but if they were to agree to exchange population for peace, not only could the Hall of Justice not maintain its position, the Federation also lost its reason for existence. After some bargaining, A compensation of 70 million was paid in exchange for the vampire's withdrawal. Moreover, the Shantae Yao fortress that was captured will not be returned. It will be formally incorporated into the vampire territory. Doherty was also quite helpless about this. If we don't agree, the vampire army will attack the second line of defense tonight. By then, the Federation's disadvantages will only increase, and more people will die. After reaching a new agreement with the vampires will arrange for someone to re-sign the contract with the Federation in the next 2 days. After everything is over, Doherty and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. The accompanying counselors immediately took out their communication conch shells to relay the latest news back to Silverwing City. This will put the rest of the people at ease. Doherty is no longer in a hurry. He picked up the tea, which had long since gone cold, and took a sip. She said softly, "Rebecca, you played a big role in this. Your decision has little to do with me. Now that you've joined the upper council, what are your plans?" Doherty continued to ask. "It seems I intend to chat with her for a while." Rebecca gestured to her servants to bring in fresh refreshments and continued, "Integrate into the council circle and continue building up Sis. Yes, try to get in touch with more members of parliament." Doherty changed the subject. "What about your husband? I heard him say he has 10 organic cannons. I'd like to talk to him." "Oh, you're looking for him? I'll send someone to fetch him." Inside the hall, Fang Hao smiled at Doherty. "Chief Doherty, you wanted to see me?" Doherty also managed a forced smile. After all, the federal government is already heavily in debt, so there's no way they can be happy. Although the conflict with the vampires has been temporarily resolved, it has also revealed the fragility and inadequacy of our borders. Therefore, I would like to discuss the matter of organ cannon with Lord Fang Hao. "Huh? What's organ cannon? What's organ cannon?" Doherty paused for a moment, then said, "The Federation will pay for it." In fact, judging from the current situation, Fang Hao is somewhat reluctant to provide the organic cannon to the Federation, even if they pay for it. But I had already mentioned to Doherty that I had 10 doors. They are also likely to be targeted by the federal government. It doesn't matter if I sell it to him. It all depends on the price. With so much debt promised by Doherty, it's unclear whether they'll have the funds to purchase the organic cannon. "Oh, yes, we did acquire a few organ cannons from Merchant Alliance not long ago." "Leader Doherty, how do you plan to purchase them?" "Let's buy them for 5 million each, as previously agreed. The price is acceptable. It's in accordance with Merchant Alliance pricing. The equipment is all made by Hundredfold amplification, so you can make a profit no matter how you sell it." Fang Hao pretended to ponder for a moment, then said, "Okay, give me the money, and I'll have someone send it to you immediately via transmigrators." "I have no money." "You fucking..." "Chief Doherty, please don't joke around. I really don't have any money. See what the council can offer you in exchange," Doherty said. He no longer mentions any federal community or the future of humanity. It was completely ineffective against these two. State your terms directly. Offer an equivalent exchange. It's the fastest and easiest way. Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, "I want Commercial Street in the west and the entire Chinatown. Most of the properties on Commercial Street are privately owned, so I can't agree to that. Besides, can you afford the corresponding organ cannon?" Doherty countered. Actually, Fang Hao had considered opening a shop in Silverwing City before, and had also inquired about the prices. Shops in the main city do have higher prices. Prices range from 2 to 5 million gold coins, depending on the location and the size of the buildings. If it weren't for Silverwing City's attitude, which was sometimes indifferent and sometimes tense, he would have bought several properties long ago. It was used to open a hot pot restaurant and a clothing store. After some thought, buying the whole thing was too extravagant, and we couldn't give him too many organ cannons, lest it actually boost the strength of the federal army. Each organ cannon, 5 shops. I can give you 5. The rest I need is equipment. Sis, and my own city, Fang Hao said. Each gate has 5 shops, so 5 gates would make 25 shops. Doherty recalled that the Hall of Justice could spare some of these shops. He agreed. "Okay, how do we complete the transaction?" "The shop deed is ready. My people will sign it. You can arrange for a transmigrators to meet me. I will give you the organ cannon directly." "Can. All right. Then it's settled." Fang Hao raised his teacup, indicating that the two had a pleasant working relationship. Doherty also raised his glass and took a sip. After setting down his teacup, Doherty added, "I heard you have 10,000 sets of blue-quality armor." On the other side, Longya Mountain, Longding City. Halfway up the mountain, there is a huge cave that has been carved out. The cave is huge and spacious. The stone walls are covered with neatly carved stone bricks, and bright nightstone wall lamps hang from them. It resembles a huge palace built on the mountainside. In the middle of the cave is a small mountain made of gold coins and gems. In the dim light, the golden gleam was dazzling. Tap, tap, tap. The crisp sound of footsteps gradually approached from outside the cave. I stopped when I reached the entrance of the cave. A voice came in. "Miss Bate, Aragon has something to report to you." The sound traveled deep into the cave. Splash. At this moment, the gold coin mountain trembled slightly, and a huge vertical pupil slowly opened, looking towards the direction of the cave entrance. "What is it?" the dragon asked. Piles of jade and gold rolled down the hill with a whooshing sound. A voice came from outside the cave. "Miss Bate, we have found some information about the transmigrators and have come to report to you." Splash. The dragon moved its body, revealing its shimmering silver scales. The gold coins and gems at the top began to scatter down the body and into the surrounding area. It formed a small depression made of gold. The dragon's body began to shrink rapidly, transforming into a giant silver-haired girl with a childlike face. The white, glowing body was covered by a brown robe. Bate, the silver moon spear, rubbed his eyes. I stepped out of Jinshan and headed out of the cave. The sky was already ablaze with rosy clouds. At the entrance of the cave stood a pterosaur and the world's second largest Aragon. Bate glanced at him and said, "Did you find anything?" Aragon hurriedly said, "Miss Bate, I can confirm the identity of that transmigrators." "Oh, who is it?" Bate asked curiously. "This person isn't called Fu Lei at all. His real identity is Fang Hao, the one we suspect, the #1 transmigrators in the world," Aragon said immediately. Bate frowned, shook his head, and looked a little confused. "What a coincidence," she continued. "Why are you so sure it's him? Did you find his photo?" "He was very careful, and there were no photos of him. But I obtained more information about him. Once we pieced these pieces of information together, we could identify him." "What intelligence?" "Fang Hao is a black-haired, black-eyed transmigrators in his 20s. In their channel, he is said to be related to the dead." "Is there anything else?" "He has a high-ranking lizardman hero, clad in golden armor and skilled with a long sword." Aragon revealed the final clue. Bai-A's eyes widened instantly, revealing a look of surprise. "When all this information is put together, it is indeed those people who fought against our side at Merchant Alliance that day." But a question lingered in my mind. "You mean the Undead and the Lizard Man are his heroes, and not the Lizard Man he is attached to?" Although Aragon has always been unwilling to accept being second, based on current information, that is indeed the case. He nodded and said, "If the intelligence is accurate, that's correct." Bate was also somewhat surprised. A transmigrators who had been here for less than a year. It's almost terrifying that it has developed to this point. These transmigrators are developing too fast. We can't let them continue to develop. Is there room for their territory? Bate thought for a moment and then asked. The hatred between the dragons and their adversaries is clearly difficult to resolve. Since the problem cannot be resolved, and the dragons do not want to resolve it, the only option is to destroy the enemy as soon as possible. In order to prevent the opponent from developing and becoming too powerful, it would be very difficult to eliminate them. Aragon said, "The location is still being investigated, but once we know his identity, it will be much easier to find out the area and the location of his territory." Bate glared at him. He always gave him only half a clue, leaving the rest for him to investigate. But relying on the dragons themselves, checking the transmigrators is really not easy. All he could say was, "I will have the dragons prepare. Once we know the location, we will set off immediately and destroy his territory." Aragon was overjoyed. With Fang Hao wiped out by the dragons, he would become the world's #1. He nodded immediately. "Okay, I'll check right away. Go. I will tell the elders about this." Aragon nodded and climbed back onto the pterosaur's back. The pterosaur pushed off with its feet and swooped down the mountainside before flying forward. Bate also transformed into a dragon and flew towards Dragontop City. Night falls. Silverwing City. Groat residence. Damn it. Rebecca really got into the upper council. How could this happen? Groat's face was grim as he paced back and forth anxiously. He abstained from voting in the morning, but that did not change the outcome. Rebecca has indeed joined the upper council. For him, this was not good news, but rather bad news. If Rebecca wants revenge on herself, then his job as a member of the Chamber of Commerce will be very difficult. "Sir, don't worry. Maybe she'll be expelled from the upper council in a few days. It's not her place to retaliate against us," the butler said softly, trying to comfort him. Grote quieted down a bit after the butler said that. Think about it carefully. Even if Rebecca joins the upper council, she'll have to wait until she's firmly established in her position to seek revenge. Besides, it really is just as the butler said. They're using Rebecca now, which got Lee Sis into the upper council. Who knows? Maybe in a couple of days they'll find a reason to remove her. His complexion had improved slightly, but just to be on the safe side, he said, "Prepare some gifts, get the car ready. Let's go to church." He needed to ascertain the church's attitude towards the city of Lee Sis. If it really doesn't work out, you should prepare in advance. Before Rebecca secures her position on the upper council, she is paving the way for her future. With their family's connections and financial resources, doing these things shouldn't be difficult. "Oh, okay," the butler replied. A flurry of footsteps could be heard outside the door. Immediately afterwards, a group of people walked in. The leader asked, "Is Representative Grote here?" Grote frowned, but still stepped forward. "Yes, it is. Is there something you need?" A bad feeling rose in my heart. The leader said, "The council has decided to withdraw Grote from its representative position in the Chamber of Commerce. Effective immediately, Grote will no longer represent the council or the Chamber of Commerce in any related matters." Grote's eyes widened, and his expression changed drastically. And without waiting for the person to leave, several more guards from the Hall of Justice walked in from behind and said loudly, "Grote, someone has filed a complaint against you with more than 70 pieces of evidence. Come with us." Grote stared wide-eyed, his face filled with disbelief. "Am I Rebecca's father's killer? Is there really such deep hatred?" The upper council was approved in the morning, and actions were taken in the afternoon. Moreover, the pattern is so clear. He relinquished his parliamentary seat and came with the guards. This is clearly revenge, and they're not even trying to hide it. Are the Hall of Justice and the church just going to let Rebecca run rampant like this? Their accusations are false. I'm going to report you to the Hall of Justice. And I'm reporting Rebecca, Grote shouted. Hall of Justice outside the door. Guards looked down at his clothes. He then looked at Grote with the same look he'd given an idiot. He said, "Take him away. If there are any problems, you can have your family members report it to the Hall of Justice and the council." Grote comes from the Marshall family. The impact is quite significant. Even when the guards are on a mission, they don't dare treat Grote the same way they would treat ordinary people. "Go and inform the family about this," Grote said, turning to the old butler. The latter nodded to indicate that he understood. Then, they followed the guards outside. Meanwhile, the same scene was observed in several mansions in the wealthy district. First, they revoked the other member of parliament status, and then arrested him on charges. Just like Grote once reported Lee Sis for not complying with federal regulations. None of the lawmakers are entirely innocent either. It all depends on whether someone pursues the matter or not. This moment, the entire Silverwing city was in an uproar. Not only members of parliament, but all the powerful and influential people knew that Rebecca had gone mad. He was about to take revenge for all the grievances he had suffered over the years. Groups of guards zipped through the streets, one after another. The mansions of the powerful and wealthy were smashed open, and the once glamorous members of parliament were forced onto carriages. On the other side, after dealing with Doherty, Fang Hao immediately returned to the main city. We rushed to the wishing pool. After a long discussion with Doherty, the two sides reached some mutually beneficial deals. 5 organic cannons were exchanged for 25 commercial street property deeds. 10,000 sets of defensive equipment were exchanged for a corresponding number of potions, minerals, and various supplies. The federal government is burdened with huge debts and doesn't have much of a good product to offer. Fang Hao didn't take it too seriously. After all, the debt was owed to him. After seeing Doherty off, Fang Hao still wanted to tease Lorana a bit more, as he felt she was still cold and aloof. But she doesn't resist his little actions. Their relationship developed very quickly. Suddenly, I thought of the wishing pool. I glanced at the time I had calculated, and it had been 2 days since the wishing pool refreshed. He instantly cast aside any thoughts of love and affection, released the teleportation light screen, and ran back. Having just returned to their territory, they didn't even stop running before heading straight for the wishing pool. Open the building's page. Dragon Crystal 45. Materials. Bloodstone 100 of 100. High success rate. As usual, I offered a prayer. He recited the names of the bodhisattvas and Buddhas of the modern world, as well as the light and abundance of this world. Select Confirm directly. After a few seconds of stillness, the sound of splashing water rang out. The third use of the wishing pool was successful once again. 45 dragon crystals were scattered in the pool. This attracted the patrolling skeleton soldiers, who then delivered all the dragon crystals to the warehouse. He himself went to the skeleton transformation field and used up all the dragon crystals directly to enhance the defense of the main city. After the recruitment was confirmed, 404 bone dragons appeared in the light and landed on the surrounding open ground. Take the newly recruited bone dragons out of the city and at the same time craft bone dragon armor. Within the territory, the number of bone dragons reached 1,506. It should have been 1510 heads, but 4 were lost during the attack on Necropolis. This resulted in a fraction of the original quantity. The bone dragon and airship that remained in Necropolis were also on their way back. In a few days, the airships can be distributed. This will allow different regions to open air routes and sell their local specialties. After the skeleton blacksmith helped all the newly recruited bone dragons put on their equipment, Fang Hao ordered them all to enter the Hidden Arms cave to await orders. After dealing with the wishing pool and bone dragon issues, Fang Hao finally finished the most important tasks and breathed a sigh of relief. If Air and his team had access to transmigrators, he would have given it to maids. Now look what's happened. This wishing pool has tied itself to this place. I must return every 7 days to make a wish. Damn it, he muttered to himself as he walked back. As I passed through the buildings, my gaze fell upon the unusual buildings in front of me. Witchcraft chamber. Before leaving, I upgraded my skill through the witchcraft chamber. Judging by the timeline, so many days have passed. It should be finished by now. Walk forward and go directly to the building's properties page. Witchcraft chamber. Acceptable. Bone manipulation technique. Divine descent. It was completed as expected. Fang Hao confirmed his acceptance. The next second, 2 dark gray beams of light pierced directly into his body. It has the same special effects as when learning the skill scroll. Immediately afterwards, a system notification appeared in my ear. Bone manipulation technique upgraded to level 2. When commanding skeletons, mobility plus 7% and all attributes plus 5%. Divine descent upgraded to divine descent level 2. Skill range plus 50%. Descent target plus 1. Controlled entity compatibility plus 20%. The notification of skill improvement made Fang Hao frown slightly. The improvement in bone manipulation technique is easy to understand. It's simply a boost or improvement. However, the content of divine descent is somewhat complicated. Divine descent is a skill that has been extremely helpful to Fang Hao. The skill's effect is also simple. It allows his physical body to remain in a safe place while his consciousness attaches itself to an ordinary skeleton. It was also because of this skill that he was able to explore various dangerous areas at a faster pace. For transmigrators, the unknown has claimed too many lives. Later, military strength began to grow explosively, and local exploration turned into large-scale power struggles. The opportunities to utilize divine descent are thus greatly reduced. Currently, divine descent's purpose has shifted from controlling ordinary skeletons to controlling demon puppet. This way, he won't need to learn complicated line control techniques like in the Devil's Note. Now that divine descent has been upgraded to level 2, its effectiveness has improved further. Skill range plus 50% is easy to understand. Divine descent has a range, and the mental energy consumed increases with the distance. It will become ineffective if the distance is exceeded. Target plus 1. Well, Fang Hao isn't sure if this effect is the same as what he expected. After thinking for a moment, he sat down on the wooden chair next to him to unleash divine descent. The next second, the skeleton warrior passing by suddenly felt a surge of soul fire in his eyes. Fang Hao's divine sense descended upon it, but in his mind, there was another feeling that he could control a second one. A thought crossed my mind. The skeleton warrior beside him also had a fire of soul burning in his eyes. In Fang Hao's mind, it was as if 2 images were displayed on a screen. They saw each other, and they also saw themselves slumped on the wooden chair beside them. Really, it's exactly as I imagined, with the divine consciousness able to descend upon 2 undead. As for compatibility, there's no need to verify it further. It's simply the compatibility with the target being controlled. The higher the compatibility, the more agile the movements and the lower the mental energy consumption. Unlocked divine descent. The soul fire of the 2 skeletons went out. He hurriedly returned to the patrol team to continue his work. Fang Hao woke up from the wooden chair, feeling quite amazed. Demon Puppet and Divine Descent have also been released. He was able to immediately control Demon Puppet's body. Demon Puppet is different from a regular skeleton. You will not lose control while manipulating the doll. Now that it's released, not only can it control the Demon Puppet, but it can also control itself, and at the same time, it has a feeling in its mind. You can also control one. With a thought, skeleton warrior, who had just run far away, felt his soul fire rise again in his eyes. They left the group and came back. However, when he was transferring to the skeleton, he instantly lost consciousness and collapsed again. Profound. So that's how it's used. Once you control the skeleton, you will lose consciousness. I wonder what effect controlling 2 demon puppets would have. He was quite satisfied with these 2 upgrades. I've pretty much figured it out. Fang Hao then immediately removed all the restrictions and sat up again. The skeleton warrior looked around again, then hurriedly caught up with its patrol team. Continue reading Witchcraft Chamber. Both skills can still be upgraded. Bone Manipulation Technique Level 2, Shadowstone 8, Mana Essence 3, Skeleton Soldiers 10, Warfire Coin 500. Divine Descent Level 2, Shadowstone 40, Mana Essence 15, Skeleton Soldiers 150, Warfire Coin 3000. Upgrading a skill also requires significantly more materials. After consuming Skeleton Soldiers, Skeleton Warrior was still selected. Confirm upgrade directly. The buildings were illuminated again, signaling the countdown. Bone Manipulation Technique Level 2, 119 hours 59 minutes. Divine Descent Level 2, 335 hours 59 minutes. I did a quick mental calculation. Bone Manipulation Technique, 5 days. Divine Descent, 14 days. It's still acceptable. As his skill leveled up, Fang Hao continued walking back to Lord's Manor. I had just stepped into the hall. 2 figures then rushed over quickly. Master, Heir and Xiao Bai, one on each side, hugged his waist, their belts burrowing deeper into his arms. Behind him, Manhwa, Yuan, and several other maids also looked at him with wide, joyful eyes. All right, you're back. Fang Hao gently patted the 2 girls on the back. The 2 women let go of each other's hands, and Fang Hao continued. Anyone want to go to hot springs? Great, great, maids cheered. The next morning, put your thighs and arms aside. I stretched and got out of bed. He glanced at the figure on the bed and muttered to himself. Fairies suck people's life essence. It really is true. After a quick wash, I continued my morning exercise. When I passed the organ museum, I stopped and then turned back. He walked straight in. Inside the museum, the funeral priests were still busy with their own things. Upon seeing Fang Hao enter, they all bowed in greeting. Grown-ups, well, how's the orc corpse that was sent over a couple of days ago? Fang Hao asked. Nielsen hasn't returned yet, and the conversion ritual is only performed by necromancer. Therefore, Fang Hao was worried that during this season, the corpses might start to decompose or cause some infectious diseases. A funeral priest said, Sir, we have cleaned the organs, dehydrated and reshaped the body, so it can be preserved for a long time. We just need to wait for Scholar Nielsen to return so we can proceed with the incantation ceremony and the final embalming. Oh, how many bodies are there? 3 heroes' bodies have been delivered, funeral priest replied. Fang Hao nodded and glanced at Hall again. In the corner, there were several piles of bones. These skeletons are the remains of undead heroes whose souls were destroyed when Amanda attacked the Great Tomb. Undead heroes, once their soul fire is extinguished, can no longer be transformed into heroes. However, it can be made into a demon puppet. The method for making the demon puppet is also in Nielsen's hands, and he needs to return. Now that Nielsen is gone, all work at the organ museum has stopped. He turned his gaze away, opened the Lord's book, and sent a private message to Dong Jiayue. Jiayue, aren't you done over there yet? Did Amanda kidnap you? Fang Hao said half-jokingly. Dong Jiayue quickly sent back a message. He said, Amanda is calling on the army to recapture the various cities in the region. In the past few days, she has also brought back a large number of people from the Federation. In short, she is quite busy. After successfully restoring the country, within the region, there are still many cities and villages that are unaware of the fall of Blackhorn City. Amanda needs to deploy troops to either persuade the enemy to surrender or to capture the city. Make all the cities and villages in the region acknowledge Amanda's status. But how did they bring back people from the Federation? Doherty did not agree to compensate the population. Unable to figure it out, the only question that comes to mind is, what population? Where did these people come from? Dong Jiayue replied, Oh, didn't we attack Shantae Yao Fortress before? Then Amanda had the population of the surrounding villages taken away to fill the population gap in the area. In fact, after capturing Shantae Yao Fortress, Amanda was capable of capturing a second city. The reason for slowing down the offensive was largely due to the relocation of surrounding villages. She knew that time was of the essence, and that Fang Hao could order a halt to the attack at any moment. Therefore, it gave the Federation army some breathing room and intentionally reduced the Federation's sense of urgency regarding the war. It dragged on for a whole day. Using this time, Amanda had army relocate all the people from the surrounding villages. They were brought directly back to the Hundredfold area. Even if the federal government investigates later, they can't find these people or fight them, so they can only suffer in silence. How many people? Fang Hao asked. By asking Amanda to do things, he himself became a pawn. They do act according to their own requirements, but they often manage to do things outside of the original plan. And you can't find fault with her, or rather, you can't use this as a reason to blame her. It's too difficult to control. There are probably more than 2,000 villagers, and the soldier prisoners number over 10,000, Dong Jieyue said. The number of villagers is decent, probably from 3 or 4 villages. Soldier was captured and will later be ransomed by the Federation. It's not a big problem. Amanda, is she with you? Fang Hao continued to ask. I'll go over there now and relay any message to her. Okay. Ask her when she'll let you come back? Fang Hao sent it again. About 20 minutes later, Dong Jieyue replied to the message. Queen Amanda said that there are still a few cities and regions to be recaptured, and it will take about half a month before we can go back. It will take another 2 weeks. The time it took to conquer the enemy was not as long as the time it took to pacify the country. Fang Hao thought for a moment and then asked, Tell Amanda that the main city has been captured and Nielsen needs to return to oversee the organ museum. Queen Amanda said it's possible, and Nielsen can be brought back right now. Oops, this time, Amanda readily agreed and didn't try to find a reason to keep Nielsen. That makes sense when you think about it. The main city also needs heroes from various fields to oversee it. No, we can't just transfer them all to her side. After confirming the other party's location, Fang Hao immediately activated the teleportation light screen, and the next second, Nielsen, dressed in a black robe with gold patterns, walked out of the light screen. He looked around at his surroundings, then bowed to Fang Hao. My lord. Yes, thank you for your hard work, Scholar Nielsen, Fang Hao asked softly. It's what I should do, sir. Fang Hao nodded and continued. The territory attacked Quangling City, and there are several hero corpses here that need to be dealt with by the scholar. Nielsen glanced in the direction of the room where the body was kept. All right, I'll prepare the incantation ritual immediately. Yes, besides the corpse, there are also a few soulless bones, which we'll make into demon puppet. Yes, sir. Nielsen bowed slightly again. Then, he began to direct the funeral priest to prepare various materials and items. Preparations are underway for the incantation ritual. After leaving the organ museum, return directly to Lord's Manor. Maids has already started her work, and Yer has prepared breakfast. Yer's cooking is still the best. Everything on the table is my favorite food. As they ate, Yer continued. In the few days you were gone, Lizardfolk Queen sent several requests to come over, but since you weren't here, Mr. Du Jin didn't allow her to come. Fang Hao put a piece of shrimp in his mouth and asked, Here to buy equipment? They said they wanted to check out the equipment or something, but it seems more like they're here to see Dimitrika, Xiaobai added from the side. All right, Queen Lizardfolk really values Dimitrika. Fang Hao felt that what Xiaobai said made sense. As for equipment, you don't actually need to run around here so frequently. Most people come to Dimitrika. It seems the queen has indeed taken a liking to Dimitrika. Dimitrika and the queen. Is it possible? Xiaobai continued to ask. While eating, Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, One is the queen, and the other is Orange Hero. As long as they are both willing, there shouldn't be any major problems. But it seems like they haven't met more than a few times. Love at first sight is quite possible. Maybe the queen likes a cool and composed man like Dimitrika. Then, Queen, could you possibly have several men? Fang Hao was taken aback. This question? Well, it's really hard to say. Well, we'll see what Dimitrika thinks. If he's willing, then we should let Dimitrika be the head of the harem. Kindness. Because of the influence of serialized novels, such as those about harems and vying for favor, Maids has broadened his knowledge in both vocabulary and gestures. Now, when Fang Hao talks to them, it's more like a modern way of chatting. I had a simple breakfast. The food was all brought down. Fang Hao took out bottles of medicine from his storage space and placed them on the table. These are intermediate physique enhancement potion, passing years potion, and penetrating elixir. Distribute them out. one bottle for each of you to use for training. There are 3 main types of medicines. Intermediate Constitution Enhancement Potion, Passing Years Potion, Penetrating Elixir. Intermediate Constitution Enhancing Potions are essentially enhanced versions of Constitution Enhancing Potions, capable of increasing the user's constitution. They are similar to Dragon Potion, but their effects are not as potent. The second type, Passing Years Potion, is a tertiary agent that increases training efficiency. It enhances the efficiency of any form of training. The third type, the Enlightenment Elixir, is a level 4 potion. Even with the Alchemy Association's 30% discount, each bottle still costs 720 Warfire coins. Its effect is to increase training comprehension and increase the probability of learning skills. This is a potion purchased from the Alchemy Guild. This is only a portion of what's intended for use in training these rabbit girls, whether it's the bull-headed man race or the spider-human race. Although there are people who improve very quickly, Fang Hao trusts the rabbit girls around him the most. After all, there's a contract with them, and their loyalty is now at least 98, with the rest at 100. If you're going to cultivate someone, you should definitely prioritize cultivating someone you trust. As for the other races, Fang Hao will also introduce these potions in subsequent regional products, available for purchase by people of all races. After you understood the effects of the medicine, he nodded and put it away. Although it was clear that these medicines were expensive and that their master meant well for them. But the thought of training still bothers me a bit. Training is no easy task. Thank you, master, you replied. Fang Hao nodded. Don't use the penetration potion yet. Wait until Njia comes back before using it. Oh, I understand. By the way, how's Mealy doing? What step is she on now? I haven't seen her in ages. Mealy is the short, white-haired rabbit maid. The most exaggerated thing is the disproportionate weight of the body. That's almost an exaggeration. However, it must be said that Mealy has a high level of combat talent and has always been the maid who improves the fastest among the middle-ranked maids. Mealy was previously assigned to participate in some combat with the Grizzlies, but after the Grey Bear stronghold disbanded, Mealy was put in charge of collecting furs in the Orc territory. Winter has passed, and no one has returned. Yer smiled and said, Mealy stayed in Tusco City, I heard, to learn from Commander Copperbull. Oh, it's in Tusco City. Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, well, let's distribute the potions to everyone first. I'll go to Quangling City later and see Mealy there too. Yes, master. Yer agreed, then took Xiao Bai's hand and went out with the medicine. After explaining to Yer, Fang Hao called Dimitrika over and told him that Lizard Folk Queen had come over several times during the days he was away. They might be looking for him. I took a closer look and found that Dimitrika hadn't changed much. With a helmet on its head and blue scales covering its head, its expression was completely unreadable. However, judging from Dimitrika's lack of any rebuttal, I think I have a pretty good impression of Lizard Folk Queen. Go check on the Holy Dynasty these next few days. Caravans are being established in the region. You can have a chat with the Queen, Fang Hao said. Dimitrika paused for a moment, then realized what she meant and nodded. Thank you, sir. Yes, as our territory expands, a strong ally is essential. Fang Hao continued. Understood, sir. The two exchanged a few words briefly. Fang Hao used his teleportation to travel to Quangling City. They walked out of the light curtain. They were already in the Lord Hall of Quangling City. It still features a wild Orcish layout, with swords, antlers, and other decorations hanging all over the walls. Lord, just then, a muffled sound came from the doorway. A bull-headed man guards, carrying an adze, are watching this side. Well, what about Copperbull and Njia? Fang Hao asked. Minotaur Guard immediately said, Please wait a moment, my lord. I will go and fetch the chieftain and Miss Njia right away. Okay, go ahead. Fang Hao nodded. Minotaur Guard turned and left, leaving Fang Hao and Dimitrika behind. Fang Hao glanced at the empty hall. He walked straight up to the city lord's throne. The moment I sat down, a system notification appeared before my eyes. Quangling City, now your subordinate city, can be renamed here. It has control over 6 subordinate village camps. That's how the Orc's social system works. It was divided into pieces. Each city is basically in a state of independent operation. They fought and plundered each other. If the Orcs can unite and maintain a stable order, given their widespread numbers, they could definitely become a top-tier power. Instead, it is now a camp that is even worse than the Human Federation. Quangling City. City Tier. Level 11 Indigenous City. Attributes. Orc reproduction plus 15%. Mining plus 10%. livestock farming plus 20%, commerce plus 5%, fierce lion clan bloodline plus 10%. Description: a city with attributes that can bring various beneficial effects, accelerating the city's construction and development. Like Tusco, Quangling City is also a level 11 city. In terms of attributes, mineral mining and animal husbandry have been added. It's a fairly standard orc city. The only difference is the last item. Added Fierce Lion Clan Bloodline plus 10%. Fierce Lion Clan Bloodline increases the chances of producing talented individuals and heroes within this race. Goodness, the Fierce Lion Clan has truly turned Quangling City into their own clan, even giving the city a unique attribute. Moreover, this Fierce Lion Clan seems to have quite an unusual lineage. Just then, footsteps sounded outside the door. Copper Bull Teluok and Jia and several orcs strode in. When he saw Fang Hao on the throne, they all bowed and said, "Lord."